Morning, morning. Hughes, 30, 52 months. Jeez. I never know how to say your name. Starting off good. I have no idea what to watch. Literally couldn't fall asleep last night. I'm exhausted. Let's make some money. I'm a professional. Jeez. 3,000 biddies.
RIVNX2.
Holy jeez. You say Rivian. What did you do to Rivian? Hot damn. It's not even moved. Zammy, explain yourself. Jeez. Oh, come on. Oh. Keep going. Gotta get 950 on your mind. Nope. Oh. Keep going. Morning, Chicka Bow Wow. Good shot. Quality. All right, we'll re-enter for that 950. Look, this diagonal's kind of cracking. Ah, here we go. Now that I'm out, right? It's a 30-second cock. Boom shakalaka. Okay. 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 Zammy, I'm still needing an exclamation. Exclamation? There's a caffeine. Explanation for your actions, young man. Jeez, just smacking me upside the head with 3,000 biddies first thing in the morning. I mean, the groundhog hadn't even woken up yet. He wants you to buy 12 shares. Oh, is that it? Is that what you were saying? Mother of God, Shizza. Yes, buy the 2 shares. Okay. Okay. That makes sense now. So you gave me $30 for 2 shares. Rod, and see, this man knows. This man gets it. According to Pope. This man gets it. He gave me $30 when it's really going to cost me $24, right? I get taxed on this. So he threw in tax money too. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. This is going straight in to the ETF me in the ass right now. I have the money. I have cash in there. I have enough. CLBR, Donald Trump Jr. All right. ETF me in the ass. Buying 2. Boom. Huh? Insufficient balance. What? Oh, it's 26. Oh, it's 26 and change. Keep dumping for a second. Keep going. Keep going. $1 off. Keep dumping. All right, let me just transfer the freaking money in there. Give me 1 second. All right, transfer money from Stock Jock to ETF me in the ass. $30. Whoa, not 300. Confirm. All right. There it is. Okay. Buying 2. Brick low day. Yes. All right. It's official. ETF me in the ass. All right. I got to add this to the watch list here. RIVN. Note.
50 months he still forgets disc.
Huh? 50 months still forgets a disc. What are we talking about? Hang on. Let me figure this out. I got to write this down. Zammy. Hang on, dude. Fine. Morning Discord. Okay. Hang on a second. Zammy. $30 for 2 for RIVN. 2 RIVN shares. Today's date is 6. 25. 25. With a cost basis of $13.76. And I do need to put in the GFAI one that Chicka Bow Wow gave me. GFAI. Chicka Bow Wow. This was last week, right? Oop, thought I saw it. Oh. There it is. $2 for 1 GFAI share. And this was 617.25. Cost basis $1.11, I believe. $1.12. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. This is it. This is what we got so far. This is the ETF my ass. We're building it out. It'll be $1 million fund someday. $1 million. Thrill House, yeah. Did them. That's because people are going to donate and it's going to turn into $1 million fund. That's how it's going to work. And of course, it's going to grow. Obviously, it's going to grow. Obviously. This NKTR, absolute juicer. To watch that one. What was that? SR, yeah, SRFM. What you doing? Luke. 4th of July is just around the corner. I wonder if I can change the price on the rockets for that one day. I'll have to look that up. Two major projects looking to push this year out of Rumble. Rumble wallets in short. What's up with this? 45%.
Thy haircut, a geometric crime most bold, resembles a helmet, forged in a preschool mold.
Oh,
Thine ego, colossal, thy height, less so. Thou smittest thine enemies, from a step-stool below.
thank you for that. 54 months, dude. 54 months. Let's go, bud. Not sure I understand this news on QS, why it's pushed so hard, but it is, so we'll just roll with it. Oh! Okay, that's what I wanted. 31. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. Stop. It's too slow to sell. Holy shit. It's too slow to sell. Oh, it's too slow to sell. Please bounce off the 9. Don't give me another. Oh, this is ugly now. Bounce, you bastard. Bounce, you bastard. Oh, this is ugly! Oh! Jesus. Oh, 20 cents! The Pope! You must gonna paycheck. Bubba. I wouldn't call it discipline. It was just reading the tape. It showed life still. Good God, that was close though, huh? Janked with the golden tomato. Oh, here's a 1 minute. Over 30. Jeez. This thing's got range, doesn't it? No, I didn't really follow your risk reward strategy, but we aren't going to talk about it. My risk reward? I was buying the dip. I don't really have a risk reward strategy at all. I have zero risk reward strategy. That's not in my equation. I was buy the dip. I was buy the dip strategy. High day on this guy, huh? Oh, it already broke. Glad I refreshed that. Jeez. We have Pow at 10 again. 921. So that cracked again. This is this area. What? Jeez. Thought I had this up. Apparently not. CRCL is going to go for 200 today. No way it went. Did it go? No, okay. EYEN. Juicer. Watch yesterday's high, EYEN 1075. Hopefully it pulls back right before that. Good volume. $62 would be the 30-second cock. I'm at 58. Jeez. It's a 30-second cock I'm playing here, but it doesn't seem to be working. I see you. Whoever that was, I see you. That should have been it. Last chance we got is a 1 minute now. Otherwise, we're going to pull back. It broke. Needs to go. $66. Gonna do it here? $75, $80. Yeah. Now it goes. Kind of a weak break. Oh. Barely made anything on that. Kind of yucky. Kind of yucky. Sloppy. Sloppy. Trump native live. Not too interested in that. Cambodian handbags? I don't even know what the hell that is. Do I look like a handbag kind of guy? What are we talking about, Siru? Great with bowling shoes. Okay. What is that shred? Sounds like I'm saying a racial slur if I said that out loud. They're leather? I'm sure they are. Pal testimony. There we go. Thank you.
The Fed plays a central role in the health of our economy and the stability of our financial system. But with that role comes responsibility to be accountable to the American people, to remain independent from political pressures, and to be transparent. Unfortunately, over the past few years, many Americans have lost confidence in the Federal Reserve.
Damn.
Since
Damn.
2021, American families have endured persistent inflation, rising interest rates, and a tightening squeeze on their wallets.
75 needs a
College
hold.
student trying to cover tuition and food with a part-time job is finding that everything costs so much more, while credit costs have doubled. A senior citizen trying to downsize is watching mortgage rates skyrocket and fixed incomes fall behind. Yet during this time of hardship, the Fed has spent billions on lavish renovations to its DC offices. We're talking about rooftop terraces, custom elevators that open into VIP dining rooms, white marble finishes,
Ooh.
and even a private art collection.
Oh.
All this costing $2.5 billion, a 32% increase. From
Million
the
or
original
billion? What'd he say?
$1.9 billion price tag at a time when the Fed hasn't turned a profit since 2022. We can all agree that updating aging infrastructure is a legitimate need. But when senior citizens can barely afford Formica countertops, it sends the wrong message to spend public money on luxury upgrades that feel more like they belong in the Palace of Versailles than a public institution. At the same time, the Fed's role as an independent, apolitical
minimize the dinging.
institution is being questioned. The central bank joined a global organization to green the financial system under the leadership of President Biden, and only to exit it as soon as President Trump took office. That's not neutrality, that's drifting. Now let's turn to supervision at the Fed, which at times is unduly burdensome. The Fed must right-size the regulatory framework for banks to eliminate unnecessary burdens, especially community banks. I'm encouraged that the Fed is taking important first steps on capital, and I look forward to what comes from the board's meetings today on revisions to supplementary leverage ratio standards. But more work needs to be done to ensure capital rules don't choke off access to credit for entrepreneurs
Tesla getting
and
its
working
ass
families.
pushed in right
That's
now.
why I want to underscore the importance of empowering the newly confirmed Vice Chair of Supervision, Governor Michelle Bowman. Governor Bowen has been a consistent voice for transparency, accountability, and just a plain old-fashioned sanity. I expect her to lead on reform at the Fed, and I expect you as chairman to afford her the same stature as her predecessors. I look forward to hearing from you and your testimony. Ranking Member Warren, you are now recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. When he ran for president, Donald Trump repeatedly promised to lower costs on day one. Those were his words. But since Trump became president, families have been more financially stressed than ever. Since January, consumer sentiment has plummeted. Since January, household debt and delinquencies continue to climb. Since January, workers' worries over layoffs have climbed. Since January, businesses big and small
SRFM
have been
compressing.
paralyzed by uncertainty, and they have hit the brakes on investments and hiring. The cause of these problems has been the chaos caused by one person, President Trump. Chaotic trade policies, massive cuts to families' health care coverage to fund tax giveaways to the wealthy, and wholesale deregulation of our financial system that will unleash fraudsters and con men on the middle class. First, trade. Trump continues to play his lose-lose game of red light, green light on tariffs. When this administration slaps tariffs on everything from food to clothing to electronics, working families pay the price. This is bad for the middle class and bad for Main Street. Tariffs like these mean higher prices on essentials for consumers and small businesses, while large corporations and the wealthy find ways to shield themselves from the impact. Second, tax cuts for the wealthy. Trump's one big, beautiful bill that Republicans are jamming through Congress represents
Spreads
the
are
largest
rough on this
transfers of wealth
NKTR.
from working people to millionaires and billionaires in American history. How are Trump and Republicans paying for part of this $4 trillion in tax giveaways to billionaires? Well, by kicking 16 million people off their health care coverage, cutting food assistance for more than 2 million children, and raising monthly student loan payments for millions of borrowers just after delinquencies
37.
skyrocketed.
Great entry.
In addition to raising costs for lower and middle class Americans and taking money right out of their pockets, this bill will
3180.
also choke economic growth. This isn't tax policy, it's economic warfare against the American people. And even when they throw 16 million people off their health care, the Republicans still can't pay for the lavish tax giveaways to billionaires. So instead of just saying that billionaires and billionaire corporations should just pay a little more in taxes, they put the costs of those billionaire tax cuts on the nation's credit card, the national debt. The Republicans plan to run up the national debt by another $4.2 trillion and expect our children and our grandchildren to pay for it. And finally, deregulation. This administration is systematically dismantling the safeguards that
SRFM, watch that
policymakers
5
put in
break.
place after the 2008 financial crash to prevent Wall Street from creating another crisis. Less than 2 weeks ago, the Fed board decided to lift Wells Fargo's asset cap. You couldn't even wait until Wells managed to make it one whole year without being caught in a major financial scandal. In just the past 6 months, Wells has been caught and confessed to cheating its customers, cheating its investors, and cheating its workers, the trifecta. For the Fed to give them a gold star and tell Wells it's okay
KTR.
to expand the number of customers, investors, and employees that it can cheat is an outrageous giveaway to one of Wall Street's
I don't like it
most
because it's
derelict
super
banks.
volatile and the
And
MACD's down. I
today,
shouldn't be
we will
watching
leave
this. It's gonna.
hearing and go
Yeah,
directly
I
to
missed
a
this
meeting where
break.
the Fed is expected to vote to lower capital requirements for JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and the other too big to fail banks. At a time when the economic data are flashing red, these short-sighted changes will increase the likelihood that these mega banks once again tank the economy and then come back here to beg Congress for
That's a good
bailouts.
MVST. Michael
And this
Victor, Sandy
begins to
Tango. No,
rise.
Grizzly Research is
To
out with a
sum
short
up,
report.
Trump's
MVST.
economic agenda. It's chaos and pain for the middle class and even more profits for the powerful. American families will face higher costs and new risks to their health care and their bank accounts. Unemployment will tick up and our economic growth will slow. And that's not just me saying
EYEN
this.
coming
It
back
is
up.
exactly
5 minute
what
on
the
this
Fed's
is
latest
11.
economic projections indicate. I hope my Republican colleagues will wake up to the chaos around us. It falls to Congress to stop Trump's trade war and kill this big, ugly bill. And Chair Powell, it falls to you and the Fed board not to pile additional risk onto Trump's existing chaos by dismantling the safeguards that protect American families from another Wall Street meltdown. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Today we'll hear from the Chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell.
And KTR
This
is
my annual
wound up
monetary
here.
Policy report to Congress. Chair Powell, thank you for your testimony today, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Warren, and other members of the committee, I appreciate the opportunity to present the Federal Reserve's semi-annual monetary policy report. The Federal Reserve remains squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. Despite elevated uncertainty, the economy is in a solid position. The unemployment rate remains low, and the labor market is at or near maximum employment. Inflation has come down a great deal, but has been running somewhat above our 2% longer run objective, and we are attentive to the risks to both sides of our dual mandate. I will review the current economic situation before turning to monetary policy. Incoming data suggests that the economy remains solid. Following growth of 2.5% last year, GDP was reported to have edged down in the first quarter, reflecting swings in net exports
don't
driven
dick
by
me.
businesses bringing in imports ahead of potential tariffs.
67.
This unusual swing has complicated GDP measurement. Private domestic final purchases, or
30-cent spread.
PDFP,
What are you supposed
which
to do with
excludes
that?
net exports, inventory investment, and government spending, grew at a solid 2.5% rate. Within PDFP, growth of consumer spending moderated, while investment in equipment and intangibles rebounded from weakness in the
Gotta
fourth
break
quarter.
this 80.
Surveys of households and businesses, however, report a decline in sentiment over recent months and elevated uncertainty
Yes.
about the economic outlook,
More level.
largely reflecting
Yep, there it
trade
is.
policy
There it is.
concerns.
32. Do it.
It remains to be seen how these developments
Yes.
will affect
Oh!
spending and investment.
Oh, baby!
Conditions
Get you
remain
some
solid.
yam yam.
Payroll job gains averaged a moderate 124,000 per month.
Oh.
124,000 per month in the first 5 months of the year. The unemployment rate at 4.2% in May remains low and has stayed in a narrow range
Yum
for the
yum
past
sauce in my mouth.
Wage growth has
Just
continued
pour it
to
in my
moderate while
mouth.
still at
Yum yum sauce in my mouth. Just pour it, pour it, pour it in my mouth. All right. What did I see there? First off, you had a 5-minute, but you can't see because Jerome Powell's in the way. Boom. You had the 5-minute pullback, candle over candle setup. But more importantly, on the 1 minute, you could see this price compression, this range tightening up, tightening up, tightening up. Kind of a flat top right here that if it broke, might get you the pop. You had rising support through here. Boop, 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 boop. So it's like a spring ready to sprang. Broke, got you a nice little run. And now it's probably going to drop. This would be a pop and drop if it does. But anyway, we made the money. We don't care.
remain consistent with our 2% inflation goal. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. With the labor market at or near maximum employment and inflation remaining somewhat elevated, the Federal Open Market Committee has maintained the target range for the federal funds rate at 4.25% to 4.5% since the beginning of the year. We have also continued to reduce our holdings of Treasury and agency mortgage-backed securities, and beginning in April, further slowed the pace of this decline to facilitate a smooth transition to ample reserve balances. We will continue to determine the appropriate stance of monetary policy based on the incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. Policy changes continue to evolve, and their effects on the economy remain uncertain. The effects of tariffs will depend, among other things, on their ultimate level. Expectations of that level, and thus of the related economic effects, reached a peak in April and have since declined. Even so, increases in tariffs this year are likely to push up prices and weigh on economic activity. The effects on inflation could be short-lived, reflecting a one-time shift in the price level. It is also possible that the inflationary effects could instead be more persistent. Avoiding that outcome will depend on the size of the tariff effects, on how long it takes for them to pass through fully into prices, and ultimately on keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. The FOMC's obligation is to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored and to prevent a one-time increase in the price level from becoming an ongoing inflation problem. As we act to meet that obligation, we will balance our maximum employment and price stability mandates, keeping in mind that without price stability, we cannot achieve the long periods of strong labor market conditions that benefit all Americans. For the time being, we are well positioned to wait to learn more about the likely course of the economy before considering any adjustments to our policy rate. To conclude, we understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the
Trump
country.
says we're
Everything
not
we
giving
do
up
is in
on the
service to our
pressure
public
campaign
mission.
against
We
Iran.
at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
I bet you do.
Thank you. Now, I'll be keeping us to a pretty strict 5 minutes, as we have a lot of senators who want to and deserve time with the chair of the Fed. So, Senator Rounds, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the courtesy. Chairman Powell, first of all, let me just touch base on, I'm just curious, a couple of items almost of housekeeping nature. With regard to Wells Fargo, was that asset cap and removing it, that was a unanimous vote by all 7 Fed governors, as I recall?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciated the chairman bringing up the fact that you have identified reputational risk and have addressed it. I think that was a really important item for the Fed to do, following up on both the OCC.
Looks like we're going to go
and the
retest this 200,
FDIC's
huh?
actions. As you know, past Fed materials like the supervision and regulation report often embedded reputational risk within the management component of the CAMELS rating system without clear metrics or accountability. That kind of ambiguity can chill lawful activity and distract from your core mission, monitoring capital, liquidity, and operational resilience. Now that the Fed is moving toward a more objective and disciplined approach to supervision, how will you make sure that this change is fully implemented at the examiner level? And more broadly, what other regulatory updates can we expect?
So on following through on supervision, Vice Chair for Supervision Bowman actually brings an unusual background to this work, and that is that she's a former supervisor. So she speaks that language and relates to their work. And I think if anyone can have an effective relationship with them and
Ziga,
work with them successfully.
I didn't see you. 7 months, my man. I see you now.
I'm confident about that. As we think about things that are going on,
SRFM
in
trying.
the pipeline, so I would just point to a few things.
No real
Basel
setup
III
yet.
Endgame. We're going to look at the rating system.
Trump on CNBC.
We're going
Yeah, I
to,
think he's talking at NATO, right?
Actually voting to put out for comment.
Not really
something on
expecting much out of that.
Leverage ratio this afternoon.
I'm more interested in this because this will give us tidbits of what
Stress
to
test is a
expect
big
maybe
thing,
in the
and
next.
there are a number of
I mean,
things
we
that
already
we're
got
looking
it
at that
last
are,
or yesterday,
we've announced and
basically
we'll be
saying
moving to in time.
things hold up.
Thank
We'll
you,
be
sir.
cutting very soon.
The payment
That
of
was big news.
interest on reserves has become a central pillar of the Fed's post-crisis monetary policy framework. Since the transition away from the pre-2008 scarcity model, where reserves were tightly managed to influence the federal funds rate, the Fed has relied on an ample reserves regime.
Members, coming up at
using rates
10:30, we
like
have your crude
interest on
oil
reserves to
report.
maintain
We
control
are
over
expecting a
short-term
draw
rates.
of 1
As of
million.
February 2025, nearly 19% of the $18 trillion in bank assets
The
were
volume's
effectively
low?
loans to the Federal Reserve earning interest. Given this structural shift,
Okay.
how feasible would it be for the Fed to return to a scarcity-based framework where reserves earn little or no interest? And if interest on reserves were eliminated, what would be the impact that would have on the Fed's ability
Trump
to
says he doesn't
unwind
think it's
its
necessary
balance
to
sheet and
draw up a
manage
long-term
policy
agreement
rates?
with Iran.
So we're in an ample reserve framework now, and that's a good thing. That's a result of the global financial crisis and the desire to have lots and lots of liquidity and large liquidity requirements for our largest banks in particular. So that's a good thing, and that enables banks to keep lending through stress and that kind of thing. If you were to want to go back to a scarce reserves, it would be a long and bumpy and volatile road. I wouldn't recommend that we undertake that road. It would not save any money. There's an illusion that it would save money. That is not the case. And it would also not make credit more available. This, in effect, I would say having a lot of liquidity in the system, which is what goes with ample reserves,
Trump says we're going
make sure
to
that
talk
banks will
to
be able to
Iran
continue
next
to lend.
week.
So we think
may
it
sign
works.
agreement.
And I think unwinding it is a policy choice which could be executed, but it would take years to execute, and it would be challenging and quite volatile.
Thank you. I've just got about 35 seconds left or so, but I did want to touch on one item that the chairman mentioned it, and I think it's important. I know that you didn't mention it in your opening statement, but would you talk a little bit about just exactly what's going on with your building? When you have that type of an overrun on the prices and you're talking about billions of dollars in costs, I think it's appropriate for you to be able to explain to the committee exactly what's going on. Would you take a few minutes, please, and explain what's going on with the value of that building and why the costs seem to be so exorbitant?
I'd be glad to if I can have that time. So
Please.
Thank you for the letter we received late yesterday. We will provide a much more detailed response, but just generally, I would just say we do take seriously our responsibility as stewards of the public's money. And the other thing I would start with is no one in office wants to do a major renovation of a historic building during their term in office. Much prefer to leave that to your successors. And this is a great example why, let alone two historic buildings that needed a lot of work. But we decided to take it on because honestly, when I was the administrative governor before I became chair, I came to understand how badly the Eccles building really needed a serious renovation. It never had one. It was not really safe, and it was not waterproof and that kind of thing. So
Not
we took it
waterproof.
on. I would start by. I would also say that the
Jeez.
media reports that you accurately quoted, they're misleading and inaccurate in many respects. And I
CRCL
was
just starting to
there's
drill
no
here.
VP
One more
dining
bounce.
room.
Just get us one
There's
more
no
bounce
new
before
marble. We
200.
took down
It's
the
filling
old
this
marble, we're
gap.
putting it back up. We'll have to use new marble where some of the old marble broke, but there's no new. There are no special elevators. They're old elevators that have been there. There are no new water features. There's no beehives, and there's no roof terrace gardens. Other than that, so all of the sort of inflammatory things that the media carried are either not in the current plan or just inaccurate. So, but notwithstanding that, the cost overruns are what they are. So let me just say on that.
Well, let's
Is the media giving them shit?
well over the 5-minute mark. I'm happy to give you time to talk about that. I'm happy that there are no beehives in there, but we're going to figure out what they are anyways. Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr.
Chime? What the hell? I didn't know this was
So,
getting the
Chair
Daily
Powell,
Cock here.
The Fed released its updated economic
right, this is on the
projections
list.
last week, and I appreciate your summary. But I want to look at the trend lines here. The Fed's outlook on inflation, the labor market, and GDP growth have all gotten worse. Compared to your economic projections in December, the latest numbers show that the Fed is now projecting higher inflation from 2.5% in December now to 3.1%. Higher unemployment from 4.3% to 4.5%. Lower economic growth from 2.1% projected just 6 months ago to 1.4% that you're now projecting. Chair Powell, what has changed in the last 6 months that has caused the Fed to forecast substantially higher inflation, somewhat higher unemployment, and lower economic growth than you did in December?
So some of it is just taking signal from data reports that we've seen. Some of it is people working in the possible effects in the short term of tariffs. We have no view on the wisdom or the longer term effects of trade policy. It's not our job. And by the way, I should add, our forecasts are generally, and in this case, are very, very similar to what outside forecasters are calling
I understand that.
for.
I'm just using you as the gold standard here. I know it's consistent. But you mentioned tariffs as one of the things that has changed over the last 6 months. You know, Donald Trump has become president and the economy has headed down. Not only does the Fed data now show
All right, get your
slower growth
predictions
and
in.
higher prices
Does
this
Circle
year,
break 200?
it sees slower
right
growth
there.
and higher prices over the next 2 years as well. And the Fed sees no longer-term boost to the economy or drop in inflation. In other words, no upside to Trump's chaotic tariff war or his other economic policies. So let's talk for just a minute about what's under the hood of the Fed's economic forecast. Chair Powell, I know a lot of different factors influence the trajectory of interest rates. Is one of those factors how quickly the federal debt grows relative to the growth in the economy?
Not directly, no. We don't look at that as a factor that helps us set monetary policy.
So you're not watching the ratio between the amount of the federal debt and the growth in the economy?
No.
How fast the debt is growing and how fast the economy is growing? I think I have quotes from you saying last
not
year,
what he said.
quote, we don't need to pay the debt down. We don't need to balance the budget. We just need the economy to grow faster than the debt. Are you saying something different from that now?
No, when asked and pressed, I pretty much always say the same thing as my predecessors, which is that we're on an unsustainable path. I would not say, though, that we do. I will say this: we do not look at federal financial policy and deficits as something that affects our month-to-month monetary policy decisions.
I'm trying to get the overall projection of what happens in the economy. So, for example, I think you have made the point that if we spend on things like childcare that can boost labor participation and GDP, that may be a time when you offset the debt that you incur to do that. But if there aren't
Chime 1 minute.
investments like that, and we are simply running up the
70
debt,
break.
what's the impact of increasing the national debt? So I understand that you don't comment on physical
Lie.
policy.
Lie.
But it does affect your job, which is keeping inflation under control and also maximizing employment. If certain policies would materially drive up the national debt and increase the debt to GDP ratio over time, could that make it more likely that we would see inflation, all else being equal?
I mean, theoretically, sure, fiscal policy can add to inflation, but that's, again, that's really not something
high.
we comment on. We try to stay away from
I understand
fiscal
you don't
policy.
comment on it, but I do appreciate your acknowledgement of the math here. You know, the Joint Committee on Taxation projects the one big beautiful bill would increase federal deficits by $4.2 trillion.
Of course, it doesn't do anything.
According to analysis by
First 1 minute
Congressional
cock
Budget
after this
Office and
nice,
Dale
beautiful
Budget
run.
Lab, the
Nothing.
bill raises the debt to GDP by 24 percentage points. It slows economic growth, it increases inflation, and it reduces real wages. So two of Trump's signature policies, his tariffs and his tax bill, will increase costs for American families. When America borrows money, it should be for investments that Americans need, like investments in childcare or housing or healthcare that would actually boost economic growth and lower costs. America should not take away healthcare from millions of people who need it and then borrow billions of dollars just so that a handful of billionaires.
No, take
and
ADTX, Alpha
corporations
Delta, Tango
can
X-Ray.
gain
No, cheers. I've seen
Thank
a
you,
spike in
Mr. Chair.
activity in the
Yes, ma'am.
social media circulations on that name, ADTX.
Chair, banks are facing a record number of regulations. Small community banks are especially burdened by compliance costs. Bank capital requirements should also be appropriately calibrated so banks are not forced to park capital on the sidelines, limiting access to capital for Americans and small businesses. I was pleased to see that the Fed is looking to reform the supplementary
What?
leverage ratio. The SLR.
I can't trade
is supposed to act
ADTX.
as a backstop to
Give me,
risk-based capital requirements, but too often the
Order
SLR
putting orders
acts
for the
as a
security
binding
cannot be
requirement
accepted
for
this
U.S.
online
banks.
at this time. Please
Would you agree
contact
that
customer
adjusting
service. Suck it.
the SLR would free up capital for banks to invest more in treasury?
Members taking a peek
and
at your
risk
crude
assets
oil
that would
report.
be
We expected
beneficial
a
to
draw
families
on crude
and
oil of
businesses
1
across the
million,
I would agree.
coming in with
yes.
a draw of
Do you agree with
spot
it,
836
so
million.
Vice Chair, supervision,
A bigger draw than
President
expected
recently
on crude
acknowledged that
oil.
Regulators tend to review individual elements of the capital framework in isolation without considering whether proposed changes are sensible in the aggregate and contribute to a capital framework in which all components work together effectively. Do you agree with her assessment, and how are you looking at the capital framework holistically to ensure that the Fed is not stifling economic growth?
Well, we're looking at basically the two big pieces now are Basel III and the leverage ratio. And I'm pretty confident we'll move on both of those in the relatively near future. And they fit together, as we discussed. The leverage ratio was always supposed to be a backstop rather than the binding. We want risk-based capital to be the binding capital requirement. So that's how those two pieces work together.
And as you look at I hope a reintroduction of Basel III, if you're thinking about the bones of Basel III, obviously, over the last several years, we talked about this. on
EIA
Monday.
reports a crude oil
we've heard
inventory
the
draw
comment
of
that
5.83
capital
million
requirements are
barrels,
about
bigger
right,
than the estimate
although
of
that capital
1.2
requirement
million
has been
barrels.
going up
A
every
USO
year.
getting a pop.
And so, as you look at Basel III coming back and hopefully being reintroduced and not just recalibrated, what do you forecast?
Well, we very much look forward to working with our colleagues at the OCC and the FDIC on Basel III endgame, and I would agree we're gonna take a fresh start at that. The last proposal was actually well above Basel minimums. That's the thing. It was the ways in which it was gold plated, as we say.
W at 3280 if it gets
Basel
there.
requirements, which were very
Which I
significant.
will add for if it does.
Just giving us an opportunity to go back to the spending at the Fed for the construction, and you said that the items that were listed are not happening. I will say that the National Capital Planning Commission website, ncpc.gov, anyone can take a look at it for themselves. Not
Come
just
on.
looking or listening to the New York Post, not just the Wall Street Journal, but page 129 of the final plans reflected rooftop garden terraces. The page 127 and 129 were where we found the ornate water features and final plans, the new elevators that drop board members off at the VIP dining suite was page 37 of the final plans. The white marble was pages 40, 41, 65 of the final plans. I would welcome your staff coming in to walk my staff through what is happening there, as opposed to what we not have only read in the New York Post, not only in the Wall Street Journal, but also at the National Capital Planning Commission's website. So we would welcome that opportunity.
Come
to have
on.
Can I just
thorough
quickly
meeting.
say,
Certainly.
some of those are just flatly misleading. The idea of elevators, it's the same elevator. It's been there since the building was built. So that's a mischaracterization. And some of those are no longer in the plans.
This
They-
80
that's-
brakes is
that's
going to juice.
earlier.
Damn,
The plans have continued
slow
to
rolling it.
evolve.
That was
and,
one of the questions I asked my staff before having the conversation with you in the preparation.
75,
And assuming that
come
your
on.
response would be to refute some of the things that were happening, was to ask the question, well, since the articles came out in April, have the plans changed since April as a result of the media attention to it, or was
Where's
that
on
just never
deck?
in the plan?
There's 84. Can you go higher today
I
now?
would just say
88.
that having an understanding, a clear understanding of what's going to be and when it changed would be helpful for us. I will note that having confidence in what we hear is incredibly important.
88, 94. There you go. High
Opportunity
day.
to bring
Good.
your team in and or
Can we
send
get
your team over so that
33?
We can have that conversation.
Such a
that would be
slow
helpful.
rolling stock.
look forward to doing that. And if you'll allow me to say one more sentence, none of those things are really were the cost drivers. The real thing is what were the cost drivers that caused the spending to increase, and we have those too, but those are not the things that did that.
Well, I
And
don't want
we
to
look forward to the conversation.
I don't want to eat into Bernie Moreno's time because he's kind of cranky when I do. I would just suggest
There
that
we go. You know what that sound is?
And then I hear that they weren't
That's me
quite
eating at Taco Bell today.
to
And I get to order whatever I want.
conversation.
Okay?
I only read page 1.
Okay. $3,000.
37, page 40, 41,
Okay.
page 65, page 129.
I'm
Because
getting the burrito
I
supreme
could be wrong without any question.
with extra
Don't
meat.
be misled. That's different. Next would be Senator Reed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Powell.
Let me go over this one.
Many times you've been asked about the
So this one was a little bit of a 2-point diagonal. I don't put too much weight on a 2-point diagonal, but sometimes you do get it. Gave me a little early entry for what I really wanted was this W here. And it was kind of slow. Oh gosh, okay, getting right. The W with a failed move here, and then the idea is you come back up to this level
Trump
and you
says
go.
he knows
and
3
the-
or 4 people
breakout
who could
is
pick
when
for the next Fed chair.
that level breaks. So as we came up to it, I was up. I'm looking for that break, give you high a day, which we broke, get you the $33 break as well. Boom, 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 sell into that, make money, go to Taco Bell. Rinse, repeat.
to do its job.
I mean, the net effect of all of those will be to make courts substantially less deferential to agency decisions. And so that's just the new world we live in. We'll continue to do our jobs, and obviously we'll respect the law as it is. That is the way the law has been evolving, though.
But there is increasing pressure on the independence from the White House. And do you believe that if Humphrey's executive case is decided in a way that gives the White House more additional authority, that'll be invoked against the Federal Reserve?
I'd rather not speculate, if I may, Senator.
That's quite all right. The U.S. dollar. I remember when the phrase was "sound as a dollar." That phrase is getting less used these days. In fact, Bloomberg reported last week that foreign companies are demanding to be paid not in U.S. dollars but in euros or Chinese renminbi. First, what benefits does a strong dollar have for us, and how will we suffer if the dollar is no longer considered to be the currency of world record?
So there are enormous benefits to having the dollar be the most important reserve currency in the world. It remains such, and for very long standing and continuing reasons, which is, our rule of law, our democratic institutions, our commitment to price stability, our open capital markets, all of those things remain intact. And I think being the reserve currency doesn't last forever, but it's quite a durable equilibrium. And I suspect that we will be the world's reserve currency for a long time to come.
But you're seeing indications that confidence in our currency is eroding in some places. Is that
I wouldn't say that. I think it's this is a very fundamental kind of foundational aspect of the global financial system is the role of the dollar. And markets move around. Markets are digesting information that's sometimes very challenging to digest. I'd be very reluctant to come to any longer run conclusions about things that fundamental this quickly.
Well, I would suggest, and I know you will, you'll keep your eye on it going forward. One of the things you've made very clear is that income inequality and lower rates of upward economic mobility are two of our biggest challenges. And you've also
question again.
indicated that this is probably beyond the ambit of the Fed in terms of dealing with this. These are more legislative
NKTR has a horizontal
and,
3288.
So I
don't know about it.
heartened to read a report
see.
from the Congressional Budget Office, which is an independent agency, that the recently House-passed reconciliation bill will take approximately $1,600 per year from the lowest income Americans and give approximately $12,000 to the wealthiest Americans. That seems to be directly contradictory to a society who's committed to raising the income and opportunities and increasing upward mobility. Do you think that's a fair estimate?
I don't know, and I'd be very reluctant to comment on the reconciliation bill, even indirectly.
Well, your wisdom and sagacity has preserved you, and I hope it continues to do so. I must
That's a
commend
new
you
word.
finally by-
What do you say?
2
Sagacity?
or 3 years ago, everyone around here was predicting or guessing how deep the recession would be. And because of your leadership at the Fed and other policies, we've avoided a recession. In fact, until recently, we've been growing faster than every other economy in the year, and you deserve credit for that. Thank you.
Just to reiterate my opening comments for those who may not have been here when I made the comments that Chair Powell has a hard out today. Therefore, I'm going to do my best to keep us at 5 minutes. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, did I understand you to say that the reconciliation bill is the most extraordinary?
Boys, we
legislation
also,
we've seen?
as long as I don't dick it up, which you probably will, but we're going to enjoy the
Did I
moment
hear that
here.
correctly?
There may have been some lost in translation there.
We have officially
I was a
reached
little
50K on the month. I
Tell
can't
me
tell you the
what,
last time I had a 50K month.
Tell me what the bond market's telling you.
Bond market's fine now, functioning well. It's pricing, it's reacting to economic
Let's go.
news. There's
50K month.
liquidity.
Let's
Rates
go.
have come down pretty significantly from
I
from
can't
where they
remember last
were
time
a
that's
couple months
happened.
ago. So I think I think inflation expectations have come down a bit from April, and in general,
There's the
bond
break.
market is functioning well.
Okay. Explain to me why we have seen in the last few months weakness in the dollar.
Next month's
That's a
100K.
great
Don't you put
question.
that
Of course,
evil
the
on
Treasury
me.
Department has the job is responsible for the role of the dollar. So I don't know.
50 cents
I
spread.
would go back to the thought that markets have been digesting an unusually challenging set of circumstances, and have reacted the way they've reacted. The dollar's kind of stabilized.
tell
now.
you
I
it
expect
was
to
when
move
we
back
did the
up here
BA train.
in the last couple of weeks a bit.
Which one? Pizza?
And there are plenty.
Oh,
of
you
people
talking
who are
about
still
my
writing that the
swing
dollar's still
from like
overvalued. We
4
don't have
years
a view on
ago?
that, of course, but
You were in
I
that too?
I wouldn't really have an opinion on exactly why it is where it is.
That was a banger.
Well,
I took so
clearly
much
there's a
shit
lot
for
of
that trade.
geopolitical risk right
So
now,
much shit for so long.
which
Woke up one
leads
day,
one to conclude on
just
we
like the
being
prophecy foretold. You made 90K? Hell yeah.
and it would be strong.
I'm glad you didn't tell me that you were
Well, you have seen some of that here in the last few
echo
days.
trading that one.
But again, I I don't really have an official view.
I think
I'd
I
like to
made
share
30K
I
on
think
it,
there
if I'm not
are
mistaken.
Possible explanations, multiple possible explanations. Again, one of which is that some people still feel the dollar is highly valued.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I want to talk for a few minutes about tariffs and inflation. What does history tell us about
Juice.
about tariffs and its impact on inflation or deflation?
So the thing is, we've been through a long period in which tariffs were going down. Remember, since World War II, really, it's been a process of lowering tariffs globally. So there just isn't a lot of modern learning on that. I think people look at the incidence of tariffs during the president's first term, but those were like 1/6 the size of what's people are estimating now. And they do find some effects on inflation. But remember, in 2019, when those tariffs were put into place, the economy was slowing. We
were playing, for those that weren't around, we were playing remember when the 737 MAX from Boeing was, they had two planes go down in a short period of time, like something like 7 months or something like that.
And we are very open to the possibility that transmission
They got
into
all
inflation
the
will be less
planes
than
got
we
restricted for flying. I don't
which is
miss
why
this
we're
trade.
I took a VLN,
to
Victor Lima,
take
November
our
note,
time
social
and
media
make a smart
circulations on the
decision
name,
as
possible
we
positive
see how this
catalysts.
unfolds.
Well, obviously,
Sure, seeing
the
increases
size
of
of the
activity,
tariffs
new highs.
mentioned-
So we were
Victor,
playing the
November.
recertification of that.
And
This is
we
going to
don't know
break.
yet.
Damn it.
the
We don't.
size of the tariffs.
We don't. And we don't have a view on any of the merits at all. That's not our job. Our job is inflation, as you know, and maximum
so
employment.
Does it? will
That
it also
November,
matter?
it was
Let's
very
assume that
much-
there is upward price pressure.
Seemingly that was going to get
Would it matter
recertified
how
in
much
November. So we were playing
businesses
calls
decide to
for
pass
that
on
November
versus
on
just
Boeing. I
eat?
can't remember what strike it was, whatever.
Makes sense.
I had a
that
lot of
matters.
them.
That is what matters.
And I was
You know,
down
the
on
question
them
is,
because
who's
obviously it was a
gonna pay for the
news play
tariffs?
and it's only
Originally,
going to
the
move
importer,
once the
but it gets
recertification
passed
happens.
along through the distribution change to some extent to
And
the
then-
consumer. The ultimate question of it is how much of it,
It
does
just
show up
sat
in
like a
inflation.
sore thumb
And
in the
honestly,
account for a
it's
long
very
time
hard to
because,
predict that,
you know, we're playing a
in
news play.
advance. So we're
And you have to
watching
look
see
at it. The unrealized
shows up
P&L,
in
red,
measured
red, red,
inflation.
red, red.
If
Finally, we wake up that one
President's
glorious
trade
morning.
negotiators pursue reciprocity.
You can
which I
probably see it
define
on the
as
freaking
both
chart.
sides reducing, in a quid pro quo, reducing tariffs and trade barriers as much as possible. Ideally,
It was probably
in a
something like,
perfect world,
no.
we would end up with two sides with zero tariffs and zero trade barriers. Would that be inflationary?
No, not at all.
That would cause the economy to roar.
I can't tell you when. But we woke up and we were up a lot of money.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
no-
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your endorsement, Mr. Chairman, of the reconciliation bill.
Senator Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Funny, Senator Kennedy, I didn't interpret his comments that same way.
Oh,
I would also say that, one, thank you, and echo what Senator Reed said, thank you for your independence and doing the job. End of the day, I think tariffs are a tax, and they're going to hit. They're going to hit, I think, starting next quarter. And again, I think the reciprocity argument, that would be a nice goal. I guess I hope we can then explain to the Australians, who are a strong ally of us,
Damn
who
it.
we have a free trade agreement, so we don't have tariffs, who we have a trade surplus with, who I'm hoping we're going to be able to build jointly submarines, why they, with all those things, still got whacked with a 10% tariff. Doesn't seem rational or logical to me. But let me get to, I've been very concerned about some of the Trump administration's, I think, mismanagement of the federal workforce. I can tell you some of the DOGE approach in the national security and intel world. Cuts are having dramatic effects. But today I want to mention something that, frankly, doesn't get a lot of attention, a very small entity, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. U.S. economic data, which has always been independent, it's really been viewed as the gold standard across the globe. And frankly, the BLS data often is the guidepost that investors use regularly. BLS helps us get information about cost of living increases, policy making for you guys. It's used to adjust payments on the roughly $2 trillion in Treasury bonds. The truth is that the BLS data shouldn't be degraded on any basis. Yet, the administration has so dramatically, and I hope my Republican colleagues will hear on this, cut back the staffing at BLS that the BLS has had to significantly cut back on the collection of critical price and inflation data. Normally, BLS staff, when you don't have all the data collected, will estimate about 10% of the inputs into the CPI. Now, with these cutbacks, they've had to estimate close to 30%. That means faultier data. How can we grapple with this, and what does the undermining and staffing shortages at a BLS mean in terms of your ability at the Fed to do your job?
You know, we can still do our job. I would not want anyone to think that the data have deteriorated to a point where it's difficult for us to understand the economy as well as we can understand it, which is not perfectly. But the direction of travel is concerning. You know, the U.S. has been a leader globally.
So it's a little bit of a falling wedge here. It's only 2-pointer,
in
so
how to
maybe
measure
does it go back
the
further?
output of a modern economy, which is something that we've led the world in for a long time, and it really helps not just policymakers but also businesses if we have accurate information about what's going on in the economy.
Maybe
You're making decisions based on that economy, not just the Fed, not just you, but private companies as well. So I think it's a
the 90 man the 5 is the big one.
I think it's something we should continue to invest in, and I don't like to see any deterioration in the public data, which has been the gold standard. The BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, and others have really been the bedrock that people really do look to as solid data that tells what's
And these
happening.
people
It was 150 someday. Is that what it was, Pizza?
Do some of this analysis.
Oh, I imagine
They are
so.
experts. They
Freaking
are
making
not
90K. Damn.
fungible. You fired one and hire another. I mean, there's an expertise here that has been, I think, being undermined. And again, you just look at the fact that if you have to do your estimates, move it from about 10% estimate to a 30% estimate, that is not good.
Is UNH a buy down here at
Move to another
$300?
Topic in my last minute.
Seems like a
Stress
no-brainer.
tests, really important. Those of us who are involved in Dodd-Frank, really important as we try to particularly think about the most significant banks. But there has been concern, I've shared some of this concern, that the stress test process was so opaque that while the regulators may
Timeline? I don't know.
fully
Just
understood,
buy and
sometimes the
hold.
very banks
I don't know.
regulated didn't understand fully the criteria. I know you're taking a look at how we can bring more transparency to the process. When do you think we'll see that, and what kind of changes do you think we'll make?
Well, later this year, we've said that we're going to, fully disclose the models, and that's the main thing. If you're going to,
They said that?
it's like the IRS. If you're going to charge people taxes, you have to have the transparency about what that is. It's going to be the same as that. We're going to show how the calculations are made, and we're working on all that right now. We're also going to. We have a proposal out to sort of smooth the results of the test from year to year. So this is something we're working on hard and expect to have
missed the
important
trade.
progress later this year when we begin to publish the models.
I'm anxious to see it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ricketts. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we were talking about tariffs a little bit earlier, the senator from Virginia talked about Australia. I will point out that Australia has, we've bought about $28 billion worth of Australian beef, and they've bought exactly zero of ours. So there's an opportunity to be able to improve that trade relationship. So that's one of the things I hope will come out of the trade negotiations.
You will acknowledge there is, though, we actually have a trade
We actually have a
surplus.
trade surplus with Australia. That is correct, but we'd like to sell more beef to them. So that's.
Oh, as soon as I got out! As soon! Freaking A!
Senator Kennedy's line of questioning. So if a tariff was put in place and the prices went up, wouldn't that be a one-time event, right? Because after that, it would be baked in. It's just a one-time thing.
So it might well be, as I indicated in my opening remarks, it might well be a one-time event, but
Gosh,
that isn't.
I fumbled that one
We
pretty bad.
Make sure of that.
Made no
We
money
were
on
sure
it.
of that back in 2018.
Lost $45
Because we've had, 40 years
as
of
it
inflation.
juices. It does.
Coming off
This is
of
another
a
W play, by the
global
way.
Inflation episode where we haven't fully returned to 2%.
I love the
It's-
W.
it's
W is a
just-
very
it's a question
consistent
we'll watch
pattern.
carefully.
But if the tariff is only put in once and just maintains the
I got
flat rate,
chicken shitted out
how
of
could that
it
be
because I had a
inflationary
high
year?
entry.
because
That would have been the
it could
perfect
be a
entry, I
process
thought.
of many years. I mean, that's a couple of
75,
things.
20
One is,
break,
if
whatever it
comes in
was.
quickly and it's over and done.
Looking
then
for
yes,
high
very
day.
likely it's a one-time.
You got the
Like an oil
36
shock,
break.
One-time oil shock where the
I
price
mean,
comes
come
back
on.
down. It goes through the system. It doesn't.
beautiful.
Inflation just raises prices once. But if you have a process that goes on multiple shocks for years, for example, or if the shocks are very large, that kind of thing. And I think, again, we have to
Oh,
be
yeah,
conscious
that's
of the
right,
current
the UNH
situation, which is
Investigation. I forgot all
people
about
haven't
that.
seen 2% flat inflation for
Maybe
several
that's-
years now.
maybe
And
that's
it's
why we
different
stay-
from what it was in
stay away.
2018 when we had tariffs earlier.
I
when we
can't
actually cut
imagine
rates.
they would be
So
doing anything
I'm not saying
egregious.
we're-
I just
we're
can't.
not reacting at all of this. It's just
You're the
it's a risk
biggest
we feel
target
like
on
as
the
people
block,
who are
like,
supposed to keep
you
stable
can't be
prices
that
for the benefit
dumb.
of the American people. We need to manage that risk too. That's all we're doing. We're not deciding what to do yet.
So if Senator Warner
But
makes
hey.
a comment that a tariff is a tax, would that imply that then taxes could be inflationary as well?
No.
So
Yeah.
what's the difference between a tax and a tariff then? Or do you disagree with Senator Warner's
Hot
characterization? that
damn.
Tariffs are not taxes.
I wouldn't disagree with that, but it's not the language I use. Look, this is, as I say,
$12
one
bucks.
time could be the base case.
And it comes with the-
but in a situation like this where the process could go on for a long
I
time.
don't know what
where
those
the
go
effects
for.
could
They
be
used to
large
go
or
for like
small,
$20,
it's just
$30.
something you
They
wanna
got to be
approach
more than that
carefully
now,
in
right?
a world where inflation is
Hey, look.
not back to 2%. And that's our job. If we make a mistake,
Sega.
we'll pay the cost for a long time. And so we're just approaching the question carefully. That's all we're doing. You know that, a majority of my committee has said that they do expect to cut rates.
I don't find
between
that
now and the
shit
end of the year
anywhere,
in the
man.
remaining 4 meetings. So it's not that we're, taking a strong view that it will be inflation and not a one-time cost increase. It's just that
Sold.
we're gonna take
What do they go for
a
now?
careful approach to that very critical question.
$70 for
What makes this good, so you know, but,
controllers, console,
Communist China
plug.
is our single greatest threat to America's national security
Fif-
and financial
$50
independence.
for one
Now more than ever,
controller.
the U.S. must ensure security of our financial systems against Communist China's malign influence.
$25 for just the
2022,
console,
Senate
no
Homeland
cords.
Security
So
Committee
if you get the
first
whole
committee
package with
report
like
identifying efforts by Communist China operatives to infiltrate the Federal Reserve System.
a couple,
The report contained real-life
plug
examples of
controllers, you're looking at
Communist
like
China's
75, 80
attempts
bucks.
used to target Federal Reserve officials.
What a find.
In late
You throw in
January,
the game.
former
What is that?
Senior advisor to the Fed Reserve was
Sonic
arrested
2?
on
Let's look at
charges
that
being
one.
Conspired to steal Federal Reserve trade secrets to benefit
Sonic
and advance Communist China's
2.
interests. This Wall Street Journal article from May 2025 details the potential
Naked?
ramifications of these actions.
$10 game, $5 game, $5 to $10
This
bucks.
Fed Reserve employees
Hot
shared
damn.
could allow Communist China to manipulate the U.S.
Hot
market and
damn.
gain advanced knowledge of changes to the federal funds rate. It could provide Communist China with an advantage when selling or
This is
buying
his
U.S.
fine.
bonds and securities.
I don't know why
Chairman,
the
has
bottom
the
is cut out,
Fed
but he's
Reserve made any
wearing
changes to
some
strengthen its
yellow,
counterintelligence and security protocols?
dirty
since the
ass
development of these
Crocs that go perfectly
So
with
that's an
my
incident.
mental
Um,
image
and
of
I would say
soils.
we take it very seriously. We have quite elaborate and serious and strict provisions around staff
I wear
access to
Crocs.
information.
Yep.
Serious
Explains
protections
everything.
for confidential information. We have background checks.
Soils,
We have
you don't have
anti-fraud,
anything
many of
new.
those things. I don't
Like
know that we've made any
nothing
fundamental
in your
changes,
life is
but
new
We're certainly
or nice. It's all
sorry, very
like
sorry to see something like this.
beat
having
to
taken
shit,
place and,
slap some duct tape on it, make
I
it
mean, We're
work.
certainly looking at at the protections we have in place.
Except your
I have
lawnmowers.
another
You buy new
question.
shit
We'll
for
just
that.
submit as a QFR, but I know the chairman said you've got a heart out, so I'll go ahead and
Okay.
back my time. Thank you, Mr.
You're the
Chairman.
doctor of soils. Okay.
Senator Van Hollen.
I would expect your garden
Thank you,
beds
Mr. Chairman and Chairman Powell.
to be
Good to see
primo.
you. I want to
Beautiful,
start by
perfect
acknowledging
boxes
the
made of some
continued
kind of, I
uptake
don't know,
the Fed mail,
oak or
real payment
cedar,
system. I know
whatever.
I've raised the development and rollout of that
Dude,
system
slap some barn
with
wood
you in
together,
many hearings
throw
over
some
many
weed
years.
paper on it,
We're now about 2
calls
years
it a day.
after launch.
I can't
I want
afford.
to continue to work with you and your colleagues to encourage expanded adoption of the capability and capacity so that customers have real-time access to their money. So I just ask that we continue to work on that together. You agree?
I do.
I thought you might. Thank you. So I want to ask you about the
Oh, here, poor
student loan
shaming.
situation.
No, I'm not poor shaming. He's not poor.
You've talked about this in the past, and you've talked about how it can be a drag on the
At all.
economy, especially
He
when it
just
gets,
loves the,
to be very
I don't even know
high
what to
in
call it.
terms of,
Loves the grime.
balances that cannot be paid. According to the New York Fed, student loan balances grew by 16
You are
billion
not poor. You got a
to
free
reach
truck,
1.63
free gasoline,
trillion
a
in the
doctor,
first quarter. of
Head
this
of a
year.
department.
Data shows an
Kind of.
uptick in the student loan delinquency rate overall,
Making
the age of
fat
delinquent
stacks.
borrowers, and the number of newly delinquent borrowers.
Living the life.
The Department of Education, meanwhile, restarted debt collection activities last month, and starting in July, nearly 2 million
Meme coin
borrowers
champion
could see
and 2
their
kids.
wages being garnished.
And a wife that keeps trying
Meanwhile,
to impregnate
here
herself with
in
him.
the Senate,
Man, he's got it
President
made.
Trump and Republican senators are working to pass this
CRCL, trying to do a 1 minute cock here.
that would limit affordable loan repayment options and make it harder for borrowers to responsibly repay their debt and get back on a path toward financial health. So, Mr. Chairman, you said before in your testimonies that student loan debt can negatively impact borrowers' ability to fully participate in our economy, and that it can weigh down on the economy overall.
Seeing a
Is that still
report
your
that
view?
Apple will
Yes,
offer
it is.
App Store changes to
And could
avoid
you just
additional
share
EU
your
antitrust fines, ticker
assessment, just from a
AAPL.
factual perspective about how this problem seems to be growing at this point in time, and what would happen if we allow all of these borrowers to default?
So the point I was
Jeez.
making, I try hard not to comment on things that aren't Fed policy, but I broke that rule in this case many years ago, and so I'll just say what I said then, which is, you can make all kinds of investments and you can discharge.
Nope. Oh,
If you can't
okay. I didn't
pay
get
back the
bad
loan,
fills
you can
there.
discharge it in bankruptcy. The
Damn.
one exception we make is student loans. And I ask whether that is wise national policy. People that borrow to invest in their education, that we do not forgive. It seems like something for Congress to consider, that's all. It's none of the Fed's business, really. Ultimately, it's not a big macroeconomic thing, but I've said it before.
There we go.
I said it again.
That's the
Mr.
move. I was
Chairman,
looking
I
for.
appreciate your breaking your own rule before, and I appreciate your
I won't do it
seconding
again.
now. I could not agree with you more about the anomaly in the ability to discharge a debt in bankruptcy. The idea that student loan sort of is the one category of debt that we don't allow to be discharged is confounding. I think, unfortunately, so far, it's been a sign of the power of some of the companies involved in that area. And I just came from another committee where I'm the ranking member, so I apologize if you already talked about the tariff situation. But I know this was obviously a factor that you all had to consider in making decisions about changes.
How many of you said that Circle would break 200?
Obviously,
today?
there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy. I'm
Just
hearing
curious.
every day from Marylanders. We have the Port of Baltimore. We have lots of small
98% of you said yes.
tariffs. You're an economist. You know that increasing tariffs is like increasing
Holy
taxes,
shit.
across the board. But can you just speak to the uncertainty
Well,
of all of this and how that is weighing on people's decisions?
So surveys
there's only 15 people that
show
bet.
very
Oh,
widely
jeez.
that people feel
Well,
uncertain
the 5 of you
about
that
the
wait, no, there's
economy, and
more
they
than
do
that.
point to
He's-
tariffs in
he-
that answer. I will say though that actually peaked back in April and has come down a little bit. And if you talk
It's
to businesses, I
309
talked to
channel,
unusually large
309,000
number of
channel
business
points
people in the last couple of months.
to
and
7.
feeling is
If
a
the
little better
no's
than it
win, the
was.
payout is
They're getting
41
on
to
with it
1.
and feeling, but I'd say surveys are still showing depressed sentiment.
Too bad
but
you
it's
guys are
moved up for
bitches,
a
and
while.
only Voganator had the
I would say,
most
Mr.
bet
Chairman,
with 5,000
maybe
channel
not the case at
points.
this moment, but we all know that we could wake up any morning and see
By
another
when? It's end of
tweet,
day.
and that could change dramatically.
End of day.
So I appreciate your
Oh
efforts
man,
to try to do
Voganator
your dual
could be sitting pretty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Could be sitting pretty.
Senator.
There is
Senator
plenty of
Wallace.
time. I agree.
Thank you,
Plenty
Mr.
of time.
Chairman, and thanks, Chairman Powell, for being here today. As you know, what always vexes me and has for the last 4.5 years about the Federal Reserve is the banks.
The ticker EHang Echo Hotel notes in a blog post company reports it has completed its first debut human carrying flights
First of all, I
for
do want to
market
thank
and
you
international
and Vice Chair,
expansion. In terms of
Mick
EH, are
Bowman
seeing a
for
spike in
ensuring
activity on that blog
reputation
post.
First human
has been
flights. What is this?
removed from
what is
the
this?
supervision process. It was very arbitrarily used by
What is EHang?
those who were supervising. on January 27th, 2023.
Teletaxi?
I'd
Is that
call
what the
it the high
automated
water
aerial
mark for
vehicles? So this is like a
Operation
Joby
Choke Point 2.0.
and all that.
The Federal Reserve Board, in coordination with President Biden's White House,
right.
executed a coordinated attack to isolate the
See,
digital asset
see.
industry from the banking system. And while the Fed has taken steps to adopt a more balanced approach to digital assets, which I appreciate, the legacy of January 27th, 2023 remains with us today. So I'd like you to look at
Feel like
this
we're early. I don't see it anywhere else.
It says issuing tokens on open, public, and or decentralized networks or similar
There it is on
systems
Benzinga.
is highly likely to be inconsistent
Leads
with
human
safe and
debut
sound
human carrying flights
EHang
in
ticker
practices.
EH.
Indonesia. There it
So
is.
my first question
There
is,
it
do
is.
you recognize this quote?
Company completes its debut
Note,
human
continued
carrying
heavy
flights
activity
in
for
Indonesia.
EHang, new
Clearly,
highs
yes,
on
I
heavy
do.
activity.
Because it's from the Federal Reserve Board's policy statement.
Shares of
on
EHang getting a
Section
pop, now
913
up
of
around
the Federal
4%,
Reserve Act,
ticker
which was
EH.
formally adopted
Beta Chuck,
by the board
boys.
on January 27th, 23. So now, Chairman Powell, I want to show you another statement, and I'm sorry if you can't see it clearly, I'll read it to you. It's from the Genius Act, which just passed the Senate
Exclamation
by a
point
vote of
news. Go
68
get
to
yourself some
30 last
Benzinga.
week.
Go get yourself
And
some
it
Beta
takes the
Chuck, high
opposite
beta
position
squawk.
to the board's
I
policy
can't
statement
stress
on issuing
enough
stable
that if
coins
you were a day
on an
trader,
open public
it is
distributed
a
ledger. So
potential
my question
cash
is,
cow.
what has changed about the risk of stablecoins since the board adopted its
When it comes to
policy in
news plays,
2023? And
timing
now
is
that
key.
the
Seconds matter.
Congress has weighed in, at least the Senate has weighed in and sent the Genius Act to the House.
And this is why I have two
Does the
news
board
sources.
plan
As
to
you notice, Trade
withdraw
Exchange
the
has
policy
not
statement
said
on
it yet.
Section 913?
They both miss
So what I think what has
whatever.
changed is
That ticker
if you go back,
NPKI,
that's
November
a couple
Papa
years
Kilo
ago, that
India.
was
Shares
the
are seeing a
period
spike in
of,
activity, new highs,
high
not
profile
circulations.
failures and fraud. And
Zax
that kind
under
of thing.
$10 pick.
And what's happened is
NPKI.
I
That was a
think,
$600 winner
the
on that
industry
trade
is maturing. Our
from
understanding
Beta
of it
Chuck.
is improving, and in a
Love
sense,
it.
it's becoming
Love
much
it.
more mainstream. So all
As
of us are
options.
revisiting, the things that were done during that era, and I think the current view is that.
So yeah, by the way, Benzinga has
that it's
a 2-week
appropriate,
free
It's
trial.
always been appropriate.
If you haven't
for
used
banks
it,
to choose
use
their
it.
customers and to be able to undertake activities as long as they're.
If
safe
you're
and
hearing it
sound.
through my stream,
in terms of,
you're
I
like
think, I
5,
have to
6
get back to you
seconds
on 913.
too slow.
I think it's a
Seconds matter.
it's a broader.
That's the difference
thing
between you
that has
buying
nothing
it
to do
here,
with, crypto.
wherever
but
I
that
bought
was-
it, what
that
I
was a
did.
piece of it. We
92.
are looking at and withdrawing many
Here
of
or
the
buying
pieces
it
of crypto guidance
here.
from that
It's a
era.
big
though,
difference.
As you know.
And I appreciate that. I hope that by withdrawing
See if we can get a 1
the
minute out of it.
guidance, that you're also instructing and admonishing your bank's supervisors to when there are efforts to regulate banks.
But you were on it before the
that
dude.
provide
No,
too
I
much,
wasn't.
Discretion to bank
Beta Chuck said it,
regulators,
and I went on it.
to pick winners and losers.
Then you
from
heard
the customer
the normal
lists, the
Benzinga
loan
guy say it.
portfolios of
So
banks.
Benzinga has multiple
it-
shot callers, guys on the mic.
It's antithetical.
You have, I'm muting that for a second. You have Beta Chuck, which gave me the breaking news. That's Benzinga, but he's the high beta squawk in Benzinga. That's the guy I took the play off of. Then you had that second guy come on. That's like normal Chuck. That's like the Chuck Jones. That's like the bastard son of Chuck. I don't know he's like Chuck 5 that we heard. He rarely comes on. But you have all those other guys that are like the normal Chucks, and then you got Beta Chuck. So you can see the timing difference. So you want to get it in when Beta Chuck calls it out because the rest of the herd hadn't heard it yet. You're in, and then they hear it, and then they pump it up. And when I say them, I don't mean just other Benzinga members. I mean other people out there in news world. Timing matters. Timing matters. Anyway.
is also a critical component of bank regulation.
Jesus!
I agree completely. And as you know,
El Jimso!
Bowman is actually a former bank supervisor, so she's very well placed
taking a poopy poopy.
Make that happen.
And I realize that she as vice chair is more directly involved in bank supervision. I hope that you will use your role to punctuate the
Savage.
importance of those changes.
What are you talking about?
Within the.
Did you go
bank
live at a normal time
supervision
tonight? No, I was a little
function.
late.
We're going to have to move on.
I didn't sleep very good last night.
Yes.
I had one of those. You guys ever go to the gas station and get the little tweaker bottles? That's like the 5-hour energy, but it's like 99 cents.
Welcome to the committee.
I was like, I had to run some errands yesterday. I was feeling it. I was tired. I was like, I'll try to do one of these. And I look at the back and I said, I'm trying to find out how much caffeine's in it. And it says as much as 2 cups of coffee.
And we know that we have to change that.
And I wasn't really
Would you
thinking.
still agree that that is true?
Because 2 cups of coffee,
Yes,
that's like 400 milligrams of caffeine,
I would always
which
say, and that my predecessors have said, and that's the kind of the only thing we say
Yeah.
about fiscal policy.
Exactly.
most
And I
most
would agree
energy
with that
drinks
at
are
a
like
time when
200.
Americans are struggling to figure out how to afford
This was
their
a double
lives
hit.
and have low confidence in the
Tweaker,
economy.
99
To
cents.
add
What
to
could
the
go wrong?
Deficit now, as
So,
the Big Beautiful Bill does,
I
just
took
strikes
it,
me as unsustainable. Now,
didn't
I'm
feel
not
a
asking you to
freaking thing
moderate between
until I
Republican
tried to
and
go to bed
Democratic
at
policy
11:30
differences
last
on,
night,
the Big Beautiful
where I
Bill, but
remained
would you agree that the Big
wide
Beautiful
awake
Bill adds to the deficit
until
based on the
probably
data?
4:30 this morning.
I'm just not going to comment on the reconciliation.
Okay. Well, I will just point out to my colleagues that the CBO says that it adds to the deficit. The Joint Committee on Taxation says that it adds to the deficit. The Yale Budget Lab says that it adds to the
I think
deficit.
for the
Committee for
essential
a
package or
Responsible Federal
streamline it.
Budget
Let me look.
says that it
Let me look.
adds to the deficit. The
Whatever you
Ford
get,
budget model says that it adds to the deficit.
I
And
think
even some
the-
of my Republican
the free
colleagues,
trial includes
Senator Johnson, Senator Paul,
everything, right?
say that it adds to the budget.
Let me look.
And,
Let me look what they got. They
wrong
changed
anymore.
the
So I appreciate that you won't comment on any of this, but let me just ask
The
you
things.
an economic question.
All right.
Can you talk a bit about what impact a rising deficit has on our goal of lowering costs for Americans, especially in the Trump tariff environment that we are in
So
right
they have
now?
basic, essential, and streamline. Is that what they're calling
What
it these
impact
days?
does a rising deficit have on
All
our
right, you
goal
want
of lowering costs for
this
Americans, particularly when
is
we are
normal,
in a
Chuck.
this Trump tariff environment, the unpredictability.
This is
of
the
that.
This is the second guy you heard. You definitely don't
It's
want
likely
basic.
that
It doesn't have any.
markets are
It doesn't have
pricing
the
longer-term
squawks.
treasury securities.
So that
There's something
the
baked in
equity
to that.
squawk. That's
And
like
the market's
the
thinking
Chuck
about,
Jones, normal
interest
Chuck,
rates, what should be the
bastard
lower
son
interest rate. But
Chuck,
it's hard to unpack
whatever.
with any precision.
Then the high beta
lots of
squawk
interplay
is
amongst- between
beta Chuck.
one another.
Yes.
So
Yes.
essentials
And
gives you
Chair
that.
Powell, could you just comment briefly about the sort of the potential
What's the
risks
yearly on
of
this?
stagflation, where we have slower growth and higher inflation? I know this is something that the Fed guards against, and could you just comment a bit on the risks of that and what it means for regular Americans trying to afford their
$2,000 a
lives?
year.
So we're not seeing that now.
Yeah.
And I don't.
That's what.
it
That's
is
the
really
one. That's the
base
one you
case
want.
that That's what we're going to
Take the
see. But of
two
course, that's a very
2-week
difficult
trial.
thing because
Trying to make your money. Try to make.
once more stimulus.
You're
but
trying to make
behind it,
in 2
economy
weeks.
with
You're
more
trying to make
inflation wants
106.
less
Well,
stimulus.
whatever.
So
Just $200
it puts
bucks.
the central bank in a
If you make $200 in 2 weeks
We've
off
warned
of
it, but it's honestly
any
not something
tool
we're facing or
that
that we expect.
Powell says
you put it in for the
stagflation
next
is
month.
not the
It's
base
something we're
case.
monitoring as well.
When asked about risks of stagflation, he says not seeing that now.
Damn you. Oh my gosh. How many come off of news? A low percentage, maybe 10%. It all depends on the day. We can look at today, I could tell you. Let's just look at today's trades. We'll be able to kind of guesstimate. Hello. There we go. Nope. All right. Power you trade. Boom. All right. Let's see here. That's year to date. Let's do today. All right. EYEN, this was not news. Chime was not news. NKTR, not news. What? Oh, EH was. Circle, no. So, of all the tickers I've traded today, one of them was news. This guy right here. Yeah, that's the only news play that I took today. How much money do you need to make $200 in 2 weeks? Well, I'm talking specifically, playing the news is not something new traders need to be doing. This is somebody that's been, profitable at day trading. This is something that they need to add to their repertoire. I'm talking specifically to those that have 25K plus margin accounts. Hotkeys are important. They're nice. I've never used hotkeys in my life. All right, let's go back to this.
Wait, does that matter to the Federal Reserve?
It would matter to the country a lot.
I'm saying, does it matter to the Federal Reserve when you're making your decision?
Honestly, we don't really have the tools to affect that.
Right.
Luke, I am your father, hitting me with the
factor in. Now,
GME
that's different
reversal.
than us. The people of this country elect us to make certain that their wages are higher than inflation. And by the way, let the records show that real wages are up this year. So we've done that, not the Federal Reserve. Second piece of it is, let's talk about inflation first.
Well, we've helped control inflation, which is part of that.
We're going to jump right into the inflation conversation. There's different kinds of inflation. There's different causes. There's not witnesses to inflation. There's key actors to inflation. Would you agree?
Sure.
Okay. So let's talk about the actors. Did you comment during COVID lockdowns that was a bad idea, meaning that you're shutting down the entire
I knew
economy?
exactly where he was going.
It's not a button. I hit the button, you can hear me. It's on and off. COVID wasn't that. We just shut down the economy. Any comments on that?
Of course not.
Okay, so you didn't comment on that. Vaccine mandates, something that my Democrat colleagues loved.
Saw
if
those
you don't get
coming.
the vaccine, you're a terrible human being. You can't go to work. In fact, Joe Biden was overruled by the Supreme Court because he said that if you work in a company with more than 100 employees and you don't get vaccinated, the company has the ability to fire you, unless you prove that you're negative on COVID. That obviously is a supply chain shock. Wouldn't you agree? If I'm running an assembly line and now I have to put my people 6 feet apart and now I have people quitting or not coming to work or I have to fire them, that's a supply chain shock. Wouldn't you agree?
I mean, it's a medical thing that you.
No, but it's a supply chain shock.
George Washington.
I'm not asking you to make a medical decision. I'm asking you to make a Fed decision on inflation.
Way outside anything we would comment.
But it affects inflation because supply.
It didn't. In fact.
Are you saying that supply chain shocks don't affect inflation?
They do, but that
okay, they do.
didn't.
So that's clearly one. If you ban the export of liquid natural gas, which is going to cause the commodity price to go up, would that supply shock not also cause inflation?
Potentially could.
Yeah. So. And now the ranking member loves to talk about billionaire corporations, that are going to get away with paying taxes, right? Who pays corporate taxes? Like, who pays it? Is it like some obscure Wizard of Oz character behind the curtain?
Who's this guy?
Entity that pays taxes?
Marino?
Who pays taxes?
I mean, ultimately, it's shareholders and customers.
So I'm going to read you a line. You tell me this is accurate. On taxes, it's not possible to know in advance precisely how the costs will be
Senator
shared
Marino
for taxes. I added
Correct.
that.
I would
but
agree.
it is highly likely that consumers will pay a meaning share. Meaning, if the ranking member has her way, let's just tax corporations at 100%.
From
Why not?
Washington? No,
That'd be fantastic.
Ohio.
Well, nobody would want to start a company, but that aside, that cost would be added to consumer products, correct?
A tax or a tariff? What are you talking about now?
Thank you,
the income
Cranky.
tax for American corporations goes up. They will share that tax burden with their consumers. True or false?
Yeah, ultimately.
Yeah. So then taxes do raise inflation, but you don't comment on.
I mean, they haven't.
and
though.
you
It's
don't.
just-
but
that's
you
just
don't.
not true. I mean,
I got
empirically, it's not true.
The chairman's going to beat me up in 56 seconds. So, but you sent me a
Taxes
very nice letter, which I
inflation.
appreciate, and it says the Federal Reserve
Oh, I see what
plays
he's getting at.
no role in commenting on trade policy. So you don't comment on supply shocks. You don't comment on tax policy, which clearly affects inflation. You don't comment on demand pull. You just said now that we should forgive student debt. Why is a person that goes to Harvard, that gets a gender studies major, pays Harvard obscene amounts of money because professors are grossly overpaid there? Is that person better than a working class Ohioan that is a plumber but can't afford a car because interest rates are too high and car prices have gone up? Why is that person? Why don't we forgive that person's car loan instead of forgiving their student loan? But you don't comment on that. You comment on tariffs. So I'm going to just show you.
I don't comment on tariffs at all, actually. I comment on
only
inflation.
commented on tariffs. You've
I'm
only
not commenting
commented
on the
tariffs.
wisdom of tariffs.
Look, the chairman's over there in the conversations. I'm going to show you a chart here. This is car prices.
I'm
This
paying
is-
attention,
this
however.
is-
You're
This is
now
car
on.
prices since this year. Car prices are down.
Japan
Car prices are
passenger
down.
car
Inflation
export
in
prices to North
is
America.
down. We got elected by millions of voters. You got elected by one person. He doesn't
mean,
want you to
can
be in
we-
that job. And you are costing this government $400 billion a year by refusing to lower
pick
interest
one
rates.
country.
Nobody in this chamber has that kind of power to have a $400 billion impact on this economy, on our deficit. And I just think that you should consider whether you're really looking at this from a fiscal
This guy
lens or a
resting his
political
nose
lens,
on the
because you just don't
freaking
like
chart.
tariffs.
Senator Warnock is next.
Thank you, Chair Scott, and thank you, Chair Powell. Good to see you. The United States national debt currently exceeds $36 trillion.
He
Last year,
Marino
we
or
paid
whatever his name was.
$1 trillion in
He was
interest
winding
on
up.
debt alone.
Yeah, I don't think he finished well
More than
though.
the federal government spent on educating and feeding our children.
I think he missed the mark.
Chair Powell, how does the Fed consider rising national debt levels during discussions about adjusting interest rates?
We really don't. We take fiscal policy as completely exogenous, and we look at the data that's coming in, but we don't. We're never going to take into account budget deficits and things like that.
Well, here is my concern. Maybe Congress should be thinking about it. The world is losing faith in America's ability to repay our debt. We have seen a sell-off in the bond market. The United States dollar has lost more than 10% of its value against the
Yeah,
euro.
that Marino guy. He lost me when he
Pound
said
is
that
down
raising
against nearly every
interest
single major
rates
currency in
raised
the world. Back in
inflation.
May, Moody's downgraded the U.S.
just not
government's
true.
credit rating because of growing debt and sinking confidence in lawmakers' willingness to address this issue. Historically, high debt pushes up interest rates, slowing economic
Dan
growth and
Marino.
setting up a
That's what I'm going
dangerous
to call him.
debt
I don't know
cycle
who the dude is.
where both interest rates and debt continue to rise. Chair Powell, how does the size and the trajectory of the national debt affect the Federal Reserve's ability to manage inflation in good economic times
Doesn't
and
print money
spur
or create more
investment
debt. Yep.
and hiring
For
in
sure.
slower economic times?
I'm happy to say that today, those things do not affect our ability to do our job. The concern really is that if we don't do something, then there will come a time at which it will be a problem, not for us, but for the country. But that at this time, it does not interfere in any way with our ability to do
That is a realistic concern in the future, given the rate of
In the future.
increasing debt. And it's something I'm concerned about, and maybe because it's in the future, maybe that's why, folks who have power, who sit in these jobs, aren't as concerned about it as perhaps the Congress should be. I'm concerned about it as a father of a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. I'm concerned that my Republican colleagues are planning to ram forward a bill that, according to the Congressional Budget Office, will increase the deficit by $4.2 trillion. So I want us to think about that. We're taking food out of the mouths of hungry children. This bill could cut as many as 16 million Americans off of health care. When we think about Medicaid, 71% of the Medicaid recipients in Georgia are children. So we're taking their health care, and then we're saying to these children that you'll have to deal with these trillions of dollars in debt one day. $4.2 trillion increase. Senate Republicans are trying to use a budget gimmick to claim the bill only costs a fraction of that by simply not counting things they don't want to count. If they don't like the math, they just change the formula. But the markets and those investing in our country don't care about these budget tricks. And I don't think it will help my 6-year-old and my 8-year-old when the bill comes due on this. They know the truth, and they will react based on the truth. The big ugly bill will put the United States on a disastrous fiscal path, and it will be catastrophic for our economy. Even worse, the big ugly bill is cutting people off of their health care, and for what purpose? To give tax cuts to the wealthiest. So this is an interesting moment for me, for someone who didn't know I'd end up in politics, or just paid attention to politics over the years. They're getting ready to create a whole lot of pain for a lot of people. And the question is, for what purpose? To give billionaires a tax cut. I think we ought to work together to prioritize extending tax cuts for the working class. We shouldn't be cutting their health care. We ought to save the country trillions of dollars by not giving more tax breaks to the richest Americans. And if we try to work together, we can save our economy from this disaster and still protect working families from a tax hike. I believe in tax cuts. I think working class Americans ought to give them, ought to receive them. And we ought not be burdening our children with all of this debt. With that, I yield, and the chairman should take note that the Baptist preacher is done with 3 seconds left.
And the people said amen. Okay. Senator Haggerty.
Thank you, Chairman Scott and Ranking Member Warren, for holding this meeting. And Chairman Powell, it's good to see you here again. Chairman Powell, I want to talk with you about inflationary and deflationary trends in our economy and how they impact your thinking. I understand, based on your testimony and recent statements, that you're acutely sensitive to the inflationary risks of our administration's trade policy. And though I note that it's not the Fed's responsibility to attempt to steer or to directly offset that policy in any way, I look at that. I look at your perspective, but I also look at many of the other developments in our country that I think present the opposite risk, which is a disinflation risk. And let me dig into this a bit. We're witnessing artificial intelligence adoption at breakneck speed. That's going to bring about productivity gains in nearly every aspect of our economy. We're about to pass a tax bill. That tax bill is going to encourage capital expenditures and long overdue upgrades to our manufacturing capacity, again, increasing productivity. And if you think about the concerted effort that's being undertaken by our federal government right now to reduce waste and bloated, unproductive government payrolls, all of these point to disinflationary productivity gains. So given the competing sources of uncertainty that we're talking about, it feels to me like the Fed's far more focused on tariffs and the inflationary impact of tariffs than on the deflationary impact of the points I just mentioned. So if uncertainty around tariffs is the primary reason that impacts your thoughts, I mean, how do you counter, how do you bring into account these disinflationary trends that I've just mentioned?
So we do look at the overall picture, and that's actually what's been happening is services inflation's been coming down, and that's been covering what we see so far, small increases in goods inflation. I would also mention a factor that you didn't mention on your list, which is regulation, which is an area which could also be over time disinflationary. Yeah. So we get that. I mean, I try to say that it's the broad sweep of policies and the broader economy that matters for inflation. I get asked about tariffs a lot, and that's the one where all forecasters are expecting, a significant increase between now and the end of this year. We don't know how big it's going to be. We don't know when it's going to come, but it's just something that we're we're waiting to see more information on so we can make a better decision on interest rates. That's all it is.
Well, I hear the discussion about not knowing the magnitude and the timing of the trade talks and the resulting tariffs that will ensue. It does seem to me that there's a bias toward viewing this as more inflationary than deflationary. And I'd like to ask you this. If Ambassador Greer is successful at bringing the trade deals together soon and alleviating that uncertainty, what would that do to your perspective on rates? Would that put you in a position to think more aggressively about lowering rates?
Yes, potentially it would. I mean, really, it's reducing uncertainty would help, and also just what's going to be the final tariff rate and getting that settled. And I think that's the path we're on. You know,
I think that's welcome news. I think the markets will welcome that as well, because I do believe that we're on the path, as you're about to say, of having some significant resolution in trade uncertainty. We've lived in an unbalanced world for years, where the United States has had the lowest tariff barriers in the world, and other nations have taken advantage of that. Jameson Greer and this team, Scott Bessent and his team, the president, everyone is making a concerted effort to fix this. So I'm looking forward to that. One other area I wanted to touch on, because it's touching close to home, and that is legislation that this committee has just passed out and that we've just passed in the Senate. That's to do with the Genius Act. We just passed it last week. And it provides an urgently needed regulatory framework for payment stablecoins, and it requires that they're backed one-to-one by cash or short-dated U.S. Treasuries. Over the last 5 years, the total value of outstanding stablecoins has increased from approximately $4 billion to over $2 billion today. One market participant has predicted that if a framework like the Genius Act is adopted, total issuance of dollar-pegged stablecoins could reach nearly $4 trillion by the end of the decade. So I wanted to get your perspective again, Mr. Chairman, of what impact would this new source of demand for bills have on the yield curve, and in particular, what impact would it have on short-term rates?
So more demand is going to have a tendency to drive down rates. I don't really have a sense of how big that effect would be, of course. And let me just say that it's a great thing that we're making progress toward a stablecoin framework.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I couldn't agree with you more. The direction clearly is that it's going to drive rates down. I think it's very positive for the economy, positive for our cost of borrowing as a nation. And I appreciate your response there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, it's good to see you. Thank you for being here. I want to follow up on a question from Senator Warner about data deterioration. I'm concerned about that as well. That the Trump administration, I'm watching as they've ended dozens of research studies that business and government leaders rely on. So my question to you, are there specific research projects that the Bureau of Labor Statistics provided that they no longer do provide, that the Federal Reserve researchers cannot replicate on their own or through other sources?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they don't exist, but mainly it's the regular data they supply. And as you know, they've cut back on the size of that survey.
Right. So I would hope as we move forward, and not just in today's hearing, but if there is some other data, or you're relying on data that you're not getting, or there's now another source for that data.
Article from Stat News says Trump's pick to run CDC ratifies importance of vaccines as RFK Jr. moves to limit access.
Agency and the Federal Reserve work together to improve access to the discount window for banks. What is the status of that collaboration with the FHFA?
I can't speak to the FHFA. I can speak to the fact that we're really looking carefully at modernizing the discount window and making.
That's in vaccine news.
No, it's going to be.
Watching vaccine stats, as the Stat News says, Trump's pick run CDC ratifies the importance of vaccines as RFK Jr. moves to limit access. That being reported from Stat News. Watching vaccine stats, seeing an increase in activity on that report.
The age in that respect.
Do you have a time frame that you're looking at to?
I'll get back to you. It's something we've been working on hard.
Or is there a funding impediment that is also addressing this?
No.
So, okay, if you could.
We're moving ahead with it. I'll come back to you on that.
Thank you. In March, the Federal Reserve, together with the FDIC and OCC, announced that you all intend to repeal the 2023 Community Reinvestment Reinvestment Act proposed rule. I prefer the proposed rule, as it would better address the needs of states like Nevada that don't have headquarters of large banks. How will you ensure that the new CRA guidance improves access to financial services, to loans, to investments in underserved rural and tribal communities?
So I think in March we announced that we're putting out for comment really a proposal to withdraw the proposed guidance, which had been the subject of litigation. And in the meantime, we're going back to the old CRA rules, and I think that's where we will be. I don't have anything more in terms of what we might change with respect to those old rules, but that's where
So
we
the
are.
default are the old rules,
Yes.
and those may be
CRA as it existed before
ongoing.
this
Yeah.
proposal, which actually never took effect.
Right. Okay, that's helpful. Community banks benefited from high deposits during the pandemic. Since then, the net interest margin for community banks has fallen. What specific challenges do you see for community banks, if any?
Community banks, are very important. We want a banking system that has all different sizes and shapes of banks, and community banks are absolutely critical. They know what's going on in communities and in a way that the big banks can't possibly. So they're a critical part of our infrastructure, and I think they've been under pressure because, frankly, regulatory costs fixed costs of regulation have gone up. We try not to contribute to that. The number of banks has been going down pretty steadily. And that's not something we're trying to foster, but it's a sort of long-run trend of really the last 30 years. So we try not to add to what is a secular trend because we think they're important.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Ms. Chairwoman, I yield my time.
Who's up next? Senator Britt.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. Chair Powell, thank you for being here with us today. I want to start just by echoing the comments of Senator Cortez Masto when it comes to community banks. Obviously believe that community banks and credit unions, financial institutions that serve everyday Americans and main streets across the great state of Alabama and our country are so critically important to people being able to actually achieve the American dream. And want to make sure, I know we've talked about this the last few times that you've been in front of us. We've talked about the rewrite of Basel III. We've talked about long-term debt. We've talked about Reg II. We talked about a ton of things and talked about my concern that no one was looking at the cumulative impact of those things and the trickle-down effect. I just want to get a commitment from you that as you are reviewing rulemaking across the board, that you will consider and make sure to make the perspective of the smallest U.S. banks and non-financial industries like the ag sector who did not maybe have a seat at the table in previous administrations, but give them a seat at the table and make sure that you're thinking about the impact on those individuals and the people they serve.
I'm happy to make that commitment.
Thank you so much, Chair Powell. I also want to talk to you about an issue that has been brought up briefly today by another colleague of mine, but that is about childcare. So when we look at the childcare crisis in this country, we know that our economy loses about $122 billion a year because of affordability and accessibility, reliability, if you will, of childcare. It is said that anyone who has a child between the ages 0 and 5 actually spends 22% of their income on childcare. We have done the studies and looked at the numbers, and 59% of
watching BP volume highs
parents say that they would like to re-enter the workforce, but that
Trigger
affordability
BP and Shell.
accessibility
Shell
is
is in
an
early
impediment
talks
to
to
do that.
acquire rival
As we are looking
BP.
to build back America, as we are looking to create
on BP and Shell, says
and
Shell
bring
in
those
early
things
stage
into
talks to
BP are
acquire
spiking with activity. Shell
rival
is selling
BP.
off.
taking a look
That's on
and being able to address, not asking you to
SHEL
comment
and
on any
BP.
specific proposal, but addressing
That's coming
some
from
of
the Wall Street
shortfalls
Journal.
related to accessibility and affordability of childcare would have a positive long-term impact on the economy.
So I think there's quite a bit of research showing exactly that, and we really saw it during the pandemic. As I think you know and pointed out, it's not a role. It's not a
Seeing a
an issue we
report
play a
from
role
Wall
on,
Street
but
Journal that
clearly,
Shell is in early
it would
talks to
contribute-
acquire BP.
Childcare would contribute to participation in the labor force by many.
Absolutely, and as Alabama looks, we look at our labor participation rate.
BP shares getting a
Members watching that activity in Shell,
SHEL
SHEL, trading at lows while BP
and know that
at
addressing this
highs.
head-on will help us
Following
be
those
able to achieve
headlines.
that. So thank you so much, Chair Powell. I look forward to continuing to work to get that done. So there has been some angst vocalized about the reconciliation bill and the president's trade policies. And from my perspective, much of that skepticism is both unfair and premature. Market resiliency and recent economic data actually continues to reflect confidence in the U.S. economy. Look at the recent Treasury auction, which was notably successful and saw stronger than expected demands for 30-year bonds and stable, even slightly declining yields. To me, this demonstrates that investors still view the U.S. debt as an attractive asset, regardless of the ongoing policy discussions and debates and forging a pathway forward. And those fundamentals of the economy, actually remain quite strong. Chair Powell, would you agree that the components of our economy actually remain quite strong? And how does the Fed consider this type of strong auction performance in the context of your market expectations and monetary policy discussions?
As you point out, the Treasury market is working fine just now. Liquidity is adequate, and bond prices are responding to economic events, and so bond market's in good shape. In terms of the strength of the economy, I would strongly agree. The labor market's in a solid place. The economy's growing. Inflation is in a pretty good place, come much closer to 2%. So it's a very solid economy. We are watching the labor market very closely, as we always do. And a couple of things in particular. One is just a very low hiring rate, which goes with a low layoff rate. But if we were to start to see layoffs, we would see unemployment go up quickly, and so we're watching that carefully. But the labor market has remained solid, and I would agree with your overall characterization.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, ma'am. Senator Kim.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you for coming before us today. You've often said in the past that when it comes to monetary policy that it works with a lag, right? That this is something that you're having to try to assess the data that's before you.
Right.
I'm thinking about this because we have the Federal Open Market Committee, FOMC 5-year review, and you were talking about tariffs and the uncertainty of this moment. So I guess I just wanted to ask you, how do you balance sort of assessing between more of the backwards-looking data that you're able to look at more tangibly in that way, but also addressing sort of forward-looking models to try to understand where things are heading?
That's really the challenge that all forecasters have, and really monetary policy needs to be forward-looking. At the same time, we need to be humble about our how hard it is to forecast. So particularly at times of high uncertainty, which I would say I would include now, you really want to look at the real data and take signal from that, and not be too brave about what your forecast might be, because it's going to be highly uncertain.
So you're saying that in times of greater uncertainty, in some ways that makes you more interested in the backwards-looking data to sort of guide you?
Well, I'd almost flip it around. Yes, but I'd almost flip it around and say at a time like that, you don't want to be giving a lot of forward guidance, and you don't want to be acting as though you have a lot of certainty about the path forward. It makes sense to move more slowly in most situations where there's more uncertainty. There are situations where it would not make sense to move slowly, but in most cases, you'd want to move more slowly.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I talked to some of my constituents back home. There's this one conversation I had that has really stuck with me, where, a woman was telling me that, there's so much uncertainty right now in the world and certainly in her life that she says it's hard for her to even breathe sometimes. She just feels this kind of weight upon her chest. And I've thought about that a lot, because I try to think through what can we do to try to alleviate that concern, alleviate that anxiety for people. But you can see it. I mean, right now, whether it's about what's unfolding in the Middle East and the fragility of what comes next. When I look at this reconciliation bill before us in the Senate, I do worry not just about the deficit, as some of my colleagues have mentioned, but about the potential of significant job loss that we're seeing, whether in the healthcare industry, whether in the energy industries. And certainly when it comes to tariffs, as you said, trying to think through what comes next in terms of whether deals are struck and at what levels. Are you taking into account that by sort of an issue-based level, or are you looking at sort of the global instability in terms of the different crises that are out there? Is that factoring into how you're thinking about when we're talking about legislation here? I know you're not going to go into the policy per se, but if there's a potential for significant job disruption Is that something that you're looking into as you're forecasting?
Yes. We obviously pay great attention to global events and in an effort to understand what's going on in the economy globally, because that does matter for our economy. So we pay close attention to all of those things and track them. Ultimately, though, we're looking at the U.S. economy and what are the fundamental drivers here, and then making a judgment based on all of that. And mainly, this is a big economy, and we're geographically separated from most of the other big economies in the world. So we have a smaller external sector than most of the all the European economies, for example. So we're really looking at the U.S. and what's happening here.
I wanted to ask you because, in central banks in other countries, including Bank of England and European Central Bank, they've begun modeling the potential macroeconomic effects of artificial intelligence.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell and
thinking about
live comment saying high uncertainty as of now. Want to take signal from real data, not be so brave about forecasts. Also, don't want to give a lot of forward guidance.
We have
and Fed Chair Jerome Powell saying makes sense to move more slowly when there is more uncertainty in most cases.
And speaking of uncertainty, it's very clear that it has the potential to make really dramatic changes in our economy, in our workplace, in the jobs of workers, in the way companies work, and all of those things. But it honestly, there's a tremendous uncertainty about the timing of that and what the ultimate consequences will be and what the medium-term consequences will be.
I was wondering if the Fed is evaluating AI credit models and how that could potentially deepen disparity in credit access or violate fair lending standards. Is that something that you've looked into at this point? And
yes, absolutely.
Is the Fed looking to potentially affirm some industry standards on this?
It's something we've been aware of for a long time. There's a lot of research that's been done before generative.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell in live comment saying on artificial intelligence
and technology generally.
Potential to make dramatic changes is very clear, but uncertainty about timing
can appear. It's something we're very well aware of, and we do work with people to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay, thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair Powell, can you talk about how our interest rates compare to other first-class countries around the world?
At the higher end.
And how does that affect the United States?
Well, I think that reflects a couple things. One is just that the U.S. economy has outperformed, has been stronger than others. I don't want to pick on any other nations, but many other nations have had much lower growth, now have lower inflation, and are, have pretty low growth, whereas the U.S. economy has really been the outstanding performer and remains that to this day. That implies somewhat higher rates.
So you say it's higher than most of first-class countries. Can you talk about historically where we've matched up with other countries?
Yeah, so let's just go back to when the pandemic hit, for example. We were at, we had very low rates during that era, but they were by far the highest in the developed world because the U.S. economy was the strongest. The European Union had negative rates. I think the Bank of England.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell saying U.S. economy is performing better than other countries, which implies higher interest rates.
Higher, and again, it was a time when we were just our growth was higher, and their growth was lower, and their inflation was lower. Our inflation was fine. Probably
BP, that's BP, common stock, seeing it at the high of the day, up 7.84% to $32.15. Obviously, news out from the Wall Street Journal reporting that Shell's in early talks to acquire the company. Keep watching that all day. That's Bravo, Papa, BP.
Well, they went up. All of those countries had their rates go up quite a bit during the global pandemic inflation, right? And as you know, many of them have been cutting their rates, and we had been too, and we'll at some point resume that. But we're 100 basis points lower than we were. I think if you take the EU and the Bank of England, they've both cut a little more than that.
How recently?
Recently, but But I think you probably read this, but they're either at or close to the end of their cutting cycles.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell saying in live remarks at some point we'll resume rate cuts
and the national debt. But how much does tax policy affect the economy in the U.S.?
I mean, it has big effects over time. It's really not something that drives
Shell
what
on the
we
other
do.
end of that
It isn't.
report from the Wall Street Journal.
Powell says
Shell
at
really
some
talks.
point we will
Acquire
resume
BP. Shell
rate
shares
cuts.
down
Run a huge
2.75%
role in incentivizing investment,
to
which helps growth and
$68.21.
things like
That's
that. I think
Sierra
it's very, very
Hotel
important.
Echo
Over the
Lima,
long run, it's certainly more important than
SHEL.
monetary policy.
Would a $4 trillion tax increase on middle-class Americans affect the economy?
Now here we're getting into the bill.
I understand. I'm asking how that would affect the economy and according to your data.
I'm trying to not make any direct comments on the bill today, if you'll forgive me. But I take your point.
Okay, I am trying to make a point, but there's got to be data that you sit on somewhere that would suggest that large tax increases would affect the economy, would stall economic growth in the U.S.
You could certainly get that out of a model if you wanted to. I mean, but again, I'm inevitably going to be commenting on the bill, right? If I answer that question, so
A lot of talk today about inflation. You've already agreed that inflation is down from where it was a year ago, and would you say steadily declining?
Has been, yes. I more than agreed to it. I'm very pleased by it.
And all of the experts and so-called experts tell us that tariffs lead to inflation, but you seem to have suggested already that inflation is, if not under control, close to being under control.
So inflation's in a really good place. It is definitely in a good place, and we have a forecast, and so does, by the way, every other brand name forecaster in the country, which is very similar to ours, that there will be some inflation from tariffs coming, not yet, but over the course of the coming months. And I think it's reasonable to expect that because someone has to pay. This is hundreds of billions of dollars of tariffs we're taking in. Some of that's going to fall on the consumer. Not all of it's going to fall on foreign manufacturers. And that's the only insight we have, and we're just kind of wanting to see more data on that before we move.
One final question about data. Our trade deficits with China, the EU, Canada, and Mexico have all significantly dropped recently. What does the data tell us about that?
Well, I think that's
how that would affect inflation.
How it would affect inflation. I don't know that it has implications for inflation, but it obviously reflects the tariffs.
Corporate Fed Chair Jerome Powell saying reasonable expectation of inflation over next months due to the tariffs.
Thanks.
Senator Blunt, Rochester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Warren. Chair Powell, welcome back. Inflation has come down meaningfully from its peak, and there are signs of moderation in the broader economy. But prices for rent and other essential services remain high, and the outlook is still uncertain. Wage growth remains strong, but productivity trends are mixed, and demand for places to live is high, but borrowing cost and material shortages are making it harder for builders to keep up.
CRCL, that Circle Internet Group, still watching it.
And at the same
on a sharp
time,
downward trajectory, now a new low of the day, down 8.9, now 9.2% to $201.94. That is Charlie Romeo, Charlie Lima, CRCL.
The administration's trade and immigration policies are also introducing uncertainty that may not yet be fully reflected in the economy. For families that I represent, the cost of living remains painfully high. Premature easing could have unintended consequences that undo the progress we've made. Later this year, the Fed will update its monetary policy framework to respond to today's inflationary environment. And after years of supply shocks, housing inflation, and fiscal volatility, I hope you will remain strengthened the Fed's ability to navigate the more uncertain economy. And as you undertake this update, can you talk about how you're adapting the framework to these realities while preserving the Fed's commitment to full employment?
I'd be glad to. So we made changes in the year 2020 to our framework, and those were meant to take on board the special issues that a central bank faces during the era of extremely low interest rates, where rates were never very far from zero. In fact, we just barely got away from zero when we had to cut back to zero. And the feeling was very much that if we had any kind of a shock, we'd be back at zero for years on end again. And that's really not a good thing, because the economy can become very stagnant. So what's happened since then, the big thing is interest rates are back to much more normal levels historically. So our policy rate at 4.3% actually doesn't feel like it's particularly restrictive. So it's, in other words, rates have moved way back up. That means that the effective lower bound is less of a problem. It means that the changes we made in 2020 are less relevant. They're not completely irrelevant. So we're making modifications, which we'll be discussing inside of our committee between now and the next meeting, that will return the forecast more to what it was before the 2020 cycle.
I know we had a chance to talk in the past about my focus on jobs and the economy and labor. And I want to follow up on Senator Kim's questioning, where the focus on the changing technology landscape and with artificial intelligence, generative AI, and just its impact on the economy and labor market. How would you describe AI's impact on the economy so far, and how is the Fed measuring it?
The effects of AI are probably not great at this time, generative AI, and the question is how great will they be, and how big will they be, and how quickly will that happen? And anyone who's been exposed to what AI is capable of has to be pretty stunned by what it's capable of. And this is even the early days too.
Or be a member of Congress.
That, in 2 years,
I take member of Congress all day. You understand how rich those peeps are?
2 years. So I think it has enormous.
I'd be insider trading left and right, legally,
really
of course.
Significant changes in the economy and the labor force, and
$200 a day. They shit $200 a day.
It can replace people, or it can do a little bit of both. But it's going to be something.
You preempted the question, actually. I saw a recent.
Would I change anything, or just join in?
CEO of an AI company actually
are we talking like go in there to actually try to do something? Or are we trying to make money? If we're trying to make money, I'm not splashing in the pool at all. I'm swimming in the swamp like a croc. All right. The only thing you're going to see me is my eyes come up a little bit. And that's it.
Says state AI regulation moratorium, quote, is required to stay ahead of our adversaries.
Seaver, what are you talking about? Wait, this is an IPO?
I don't know whether that's...
Okay, now it makes a little bit more sense.
How quickly that will happen. What's happened
Luxury Cambodian. All right, give me the ticker.
It just seems to take a long time to be implemented. There's the technologies.
Once it breaks 200, I think it bounces. Is my guess. Fills the gap.
Has tended to take longer than people expect.
Maybe flush down, but I bet you it closes over 200. My guess.
In terms of maximum employment, we don't. The Fed doesn't have the tools.
How much cash
address
do you pay when you cash out? What are you talking about, Dan? Are you talking about like what's my taxes?
Interest rates, and
my taxes is no different than anybody else at a job.
So that supply and demand are
I pay a percentage based off the tax structure and how much I make.
From the outside, we just have to take them as they come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When it's all said and done, it's basically 50% of my profits on the
Chair,
air.
for being here. Maybe just I didn't expect to talk about it, but since AI came up,
No, that's a very
welcome it, exploit it.
big misconception. Is people don't understand. Don't understand how your money's taxed. There's no like.
Other instances where we've had
Again, I think that's by design. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to day trade, because then you're taking liquidity away from them. Them meaning our overlords, our financial overlords.
But the transition is
they want you stupid about money.
I want to talk about
the boogeyman's going to get you if you're a day trader. You have to pay more in taxes.
The balance sheet's going to continue to shrink. We're not going to get to pre-COVID levels, which was, I think, somewhere around $4 trillion. So I guess the question is,
mind the wash sales.
You guys expect to hold higher levels of central banks to hold higher levels of central bank reserves.
It's only that much if you make it. No, I'm not in Canada. I'm U.S.
I don't think we'll get all the way back to where we were, but we're still shrinking.
I'm just rounding up. Obviously, it's not 50%, but when it's all said and done, it's close to it.
Thank you. Fed now. It's cost $545 million.
Short-term provide liquidity for markets. Yes, they do. I'm talking about taking money away from the other players in the game
implement it now. I think you're expected to spend another $245 million in 2025.
We're taking
So
away
the total
their
price tag
profits.
is $1 billion.
Shares of
as you
BP
know,
off the
Money
highs
Control
now at
Act requires the Fed to
3209,
cover
up
all
about
the direct and
7.5%
indirect
in
costs
Wall
actually
Street Journal
incurred.
reporting Shell and
So
talks
can
to
you
acquire the
give me an
company.
idea of when we're gonna
That's
see a
Bravo
fee
Papa Sandy
structure
Hotel
that's gonna
Echo Lima.
generate
Rust
and
up
actually pay
money.
for this
53 months, my man.
expected ongoing operational costs.
So you're right. That is our obligation under the law is to have it be self-funding, and we have a period.
All right, here comes
where it's supposed to
200.
happen. Uptake has been steady but not rapid, and
Is
usage
it your
has been.
sense that you're going to be able to get to that, and that the fee structure that you're going to need based on that take
Everyone's
rate is going
texting.
to be
Yep.
achievable?
Yep.
I think it's probably still achievable. I am not 100% clear that we're going to achieve it very soon.
There's no special tax for traders. I get taxed the same rate as someone that works at McDonald's. If someone that works at McDonald's made $50,000 and I made $50,000 day trading, our tax will be the same.
One thing I did want to mention,
Minus
I'm
state
excited
stuff,
to
but
see some
federal.
of my colleagues on the other side of the dais concerned about the debt. Because last time I checked, over the 4 years that President Biden was
In
office,
Australia,
we
you
had
pay
the
20. That's why no one
American Rescue Plan that
trees.
cost us $2
And that's why
trillion.
your freaking
We had
market
the
sucks.
Inflation Reduction Act that cost
27%.
us $1 trillion.
Good
And we had the
God.
PACT Act that many of my colleagues, I was one of 9 Republicans that didn't vote for it, that also cost us $1 trillion. So I'm excited to see that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to get serious about
What if I moved to
spending
Puerto
within
Rico?
our
Well, then I would pay
means.
none.
I did
And
have a question.
let me tell
I
you
think,
something. I have
when,
looked.
when my staff
There's very
wanted to
few
ask
areas that have
about,
high speed internet,
Sorry, I just
like
want to get my notes right.
fiber. Sucks.
I actually wanted to go. I don't have it before me, but what's the current status in your view on Wells Fargo's capital requirements?
I know people that move there specifically
On the
for
capital
that.
requirement. Well, on the you mean
Tax
on the,
reason.
I think you mean on the growth cap.
Yeah.
So
Then
we
before
voted
reporting State
unanimously
Department
to
layoffs could
remove
land
that after
Friday.
after many years of having it in place, they did satisfy the requirements we'd put in place. and
Isn't your
remove the
Fed
cap along
tax
with
rate
other
higher than
agencies.
27%?
And you think your fact-based decision,
Yes.
you stand by it?
I do.
Very good.
Wait, are you saying that
last
you
thing
get
is Walmart-
charged 27% and that's it? There's no other tax? I was interpreting that as then you have to go pay normal taxes with it. Here's the 200 test. Can I do it first go?
There was uncertainty,
Soaking.
and it seems to have been timed somewhat with the uncertainty around trade.
Oh, I was about to buy that.
So I would just suggest for my colleagues, I don't know if you can respond to this or not. I won't ask you a tax question, but I really want to. But I know what your answer is going to be. You're a good dancer. I think that it is fair to say that if there is going to be a correlation to increasing prices, and
An
Walmart
FMFC
made the
IPO
decision
open.
to withdraw their guidance is probably the best.
All right,
testament that they know that
FMC
they have to
IPO.
deal with cost and maybe
Cambodian
inflationary
handbags, is that
uncertainties.
this
Would you
one?
Characterize that as maybe a likely reason that they withdrew their guidance.
It might be. You know, I saw that they had. I didn't have a chance to go back and check why.
Well,
but
if you tease
MMC,
through the
Marsh and
language, it
McLennan's,
seems almost
Oliver
certain that they think that some of their
Wyman
input
to acquire
costs,
healthcare
we're
analytics
gonna
business
go up,
validate
and we
health
need to
terms not
manage them.
disclosed.
All right,
That's
well,
Michael
that
Michael Charlie.
didn't work.
We just need to be realistic that if you have a major household
Is this
name
it?
withdrawing guidance
Candle
because of
Venture?
uncertainty, they've got a lot of
Yep,
experts
Circle
that
broke. I'll
probably
give you all.
suggesting
I'll
there
give
may
it to
be
you.
some inflationary risk. We haven't
Shame.
realized it yet, but I think we all need to keep our eyes open and not look past it so that we can management if it comes to pass. I don't think that there should be a problem with that.
Thank you.
Now, the last thing that I just want to
514,
mention is that you
25.
can't respond to this, but I will tell you, if the Democrats
Jeez.
succeed in preventing
The
us
spreads.
from avoiding the biggest tax hike in the history of this country, it is going to cause great damage to the people who can least afford it. You don't get to respond to this one, but folks.
Senator Also Brooks is next.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize she was here.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
We were allowing
but
him
we
to
need to
stall
open
till you
that.
got
We
here.
need to be open.
No!
We need to understand that you will
Cambodian handbags digging me.
fail to continue the tax cuts.
Thank you, sir. Senator Also Brooks.
Thank you so
Oh,
much. Chair Scott and
Farfanugan.
Ranking Member Warren, thank you so
It's
much.
like a
for
$1,000
hosting
loser.
Today's hearing, we thank you also, Chairman Powell, for your
Oh, well.
tremendous service to our country. I very much enjoyed the meeting that we had earlier this year and look forward to working with you. Many of my colleagues
Don't have to
today
live in
been
Puerto
listening to
Rico
this hearing
for
and
half the
rightly
year
discussed
and one day, right?
concerns
Correct,
regarding how
Cosmo.
tariffs are
And
affecting
it has to be your
consumers and
primary
businesses. And I'd like to
residence.
highlight
Like,
a
you can't
specific
have,
business in Maryland
I don't think you
that
can have another
encapsulates the
house
harm that I believe this administration is inflicting.
or something like that.
But
There's
also
there's
the
little
resilience of a
caveats,
proud
but
Maryland
yes,
small business.
6 months in a
Baydog
day.
is a successful pet brand based on Kent
Do you
Island,
usually have a goal
one
to hit throughout
founded
the year?
by
Yeah,
Martin
be
O'Brien,
green on
who's
the
a
year.
Marine veteran who served 3 combat
That's the
tours
goal.
overseas. Mr. O'Brien has calculated that if he were to make his products in the United States,
My Queen
he would
calls
have to raise his
cooked.
prices
Queen call cooked.
400% just to break even.
I don't know what you got,
The
Switcher.
tariffs, he believes, are a burdensome tax that could put
What
companies
a
like
gap
his
up.
out of business.
Jeez, you didn't
But
sell
the
this
damage
morning?
doesn't stop there. Baydog is sold in thousands of other brick and mortar stores across the country, all locally owned small businesses who similarly have to raise prices or lose sales to pay the president's tax. Mr. O'Brien started planning for this last summer when President Trump started talking about tariffs during the campaign. He stockpiled inventory and has committed to keeping his prices stable this year. But what
Appreciate
Baydog
that. On the first
is
step.
asking is, what is he to do if the tariffs are in place next year? Mr. O'Brien has calculated that he won't have to just raise prices. He'll likely have to cut his staff to stay in business. So, Chair Powell, there are 34 million small businesses in America, 1 for every 10 people. And if small businesses like Baydog have to lay off staff or go out of business altogether, what will that do to unemployment in this
Sent you
country?
my
and
job
what
obligation
effect
on
will that have
Discord?
on the broader economy?
For what? Where did you send
just
me?
mechanically, I don't want to comment on particular tariff policies, but sure, if companies go out of business, then that'll hurt employment and activity.
And what we will see is, of course, and we have so many small businesses, what we're facing now is that very prospect,
What?
is that we're going to have so many. And we believe that, the inflation caused by these tariffs
Who
will
did this?
really have a very negative impact. And if this is the case, what would this mean for American workers?
Well, the other thing is, I think the tariffs are still in motion. It's premature to say exactly where they're going to land. So we're kind of withholding judgment until we see more. That's kind of where we are. We haven't made a decision to do anything. It's just we want to see more, and the situation evolves day by day, month by month. So,
Okay. Well, in another question, in our meeting and in your most recent monetary policy report, you spoke of the long-term challenge of housing supply not meeting demand. And I look at this issue the same way I did as county executive, where I really fought hard to leverage private and public sector dollars to bring more housing to communities that needed it. Maryland has a shortfall of nearly 100,000 homes, and the pathway to build wealth is therefore narrowing. So studies have estimated that of the over $200 billion invested annually in housing in recent years, only a fraction supports affordable homes for working class families. So would you speak to the need to better incentivize private investments into affordable housing construction? I'm working with a private sector and nonprofit stakeholders on legislation now, but just wanted to know if you could comment on that.
so I would say this: interest rates are slightly restrictive,
SAFX.
modestly restrictive, and that is
Hello.
weighing on economic
call.
activity in the housing market sector.
Especially
But
over
You're
322.
really talking about a different problem. It's not one that the Fed
The
can
first
really
kind of
address,
fail.
and that is we have a longer run housing shortage. So many other advanced economy countries have this too, and it's not our tool. Our tools don't really work to affect that. It's really elected people, and you saw this as county executive. It's things that the legislature can do that can really address that. Not us. It's not about interest rates.
All right. Well, now I understand one other issue. The Fed is evaluating the leverage ratio rules regarding the amount of capital required to be held by banks to withstand unforeseen risks. And I'm hoping you can then provide some insight as to what potential changes this framework are meant to achieve. On the other hand, I understand that access to capital is paramount, particularly for communities I represent. So And I understand concerns that a change in these requirements could affect the resilience of the banking sector. Though I know you cannot speak to the specifics of the coming proposal, would you share some insights into what problem the proposed rulemaking is meant to solve, and are you concerned that it could lead to a deterioration of resilience of the banking sector?
I'd be glad to. So the idea behind it is that we want risk-based capital to be the binding capital requirement, because we want the binding capital requirement to be, we want banks to be sensitive to the risks that they're taking. If the leverage ratio is not risk sensitive, it treats every asset as equally
Finding
risky.
this 9 EMA
So,
Encore, we've
if that's
all I'm
binding,
doing here.
then that
Swing account.
interferes with banks' incentives to manage their risks, and actually discourages banks from taking on relatively low-risk activity. So we've always, at the Fed, wanted the risk-based capital to be the binding one, and the leverage ratio to be the backstop. And so that's this proposal that we have, that we're going to be meeting on in a couple of hours, puts out for comment a proposal to restore the the backstop characteristics of the leverage ratio. We think it should make for it will not in any way diminish the safety and soundness of the financial system, and it will allow for banks to undertake lower risk. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. For senators who wish to submit questions for the hearing record, those questions are due 1 week from today, Wednesday, July 2nd. Chairman Powell, you have 45 days from that day to submit your responses to the questions for the record. Thank you for being here. This committee is adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Shut up, Pizza Wrangler.
FMFC candle.
Are you kidding me right now?
Shares.
Programming notes. Brian
right
Sullivan
now,
is
holding
tweeting
at
about to go on CNBC with an
$5.38,
update to
5:33
Shell
circuit
BP's
breaker. Yeah,
story.
opening.
Tune in now.
Earlier.
Okay, yeah,
now,
the tweet from
up,
Brian Sullivan.
33%.
Is
That's
there
Foxtrot,
some kind
Michael
of
Foxtrot,
buyout rumor
Charlie.
on this? Did I miss it? Some market order. What did I miss?
Shares of BP and Shell seeing activity.
What time was this? 11:36. Shell BPV. Shell in early stage talks to acquire
BOTJ, James
rival
Financial
BP.
Group, moving here, shares up about 3.5%,
Huh.
1475. Bravo Oscar Tango Juliet.
I mean, damn. Okay, I guess we gotta watch this horse shit that stole my money twice. The halt, it resumes at 12:13 and 55 seconds. So we got 2.5 minutes. 5:75 resumption. Fantastic.
SHEL and BP. Reuters citing Shell spokesperson said company focused on capturing value in Shell through continuing to focus on performance, discipline, and simplification.
Glorified quiet
That's SHL and BP earlier. Wall Street Journal reported that Shell was in talks to acquire BP.
Oh, this is Dominary.
You note the ticker BP and Shell as Shell spokesperson quote downplayed the report, saying the company's focusing on
Freaking get here!
Shell. A quote from the spokesperson: "We have said many times before, we are sharply focused on capturing the value in Shell through continuing to focus on performance, discipline, and simplification."
On BP and Shell, not seeing too much action. Commentary out by a Shell spokesperson says focused on capturing value in Shell through continuing to focus on performance, discipline, and simplification.
All right, this is gonna open. It's 68. Really? 5. Can't watch. All right, here we go. 20 seconds. Five, maybe.
Shares of Shell are popping here. And shares
So this
of
is
BP
not
are
true.
falling following the Shell response to Reuters on that takeover rumor.
10-minute halt.
CNBC is reporting BP could be split in sale. That coming from sources coming from CNBC.
I'm not in it. I'm not in it.
CNBC reported BP getting buyout in parts.
I'm
by
not in it.
multiple
What are you
buyers.
talking about? You T12 yourself. I'm not in it.
BP could be split. That, according to sources, reported on
Soils is
CNBC
in it?
now.
Oh, yeah. T12 is asked then.
But
Shit,
that,
I wish I could
would be
toggle that
after
thing
sale.
off. Maybe I can. Hang on, boys. I'm coming. Streaming tools.
That shows BP shares continuing to sell off on the
Chatbot.
heavier activity. The Street Insider reporting on Shell is downplaying the BP rumors.
Banned word? No. I can't remember where the hell I freaking got this shit. Listen. Oh. That's why. Okay. Well, you're lucky. They moved it all around. I have no idea where the hell they put it. All right. Soil's in this. Got a minute left. Gapping up. 588, 590. Shit. Well, congrats, Soils, but damn it. Piece of shit. This Dominera or whatever the underwriter is, I can't remember which one that they did. Maybe it was Master Beef, but it was one of those crazy ones. So they have a history of doing some crazy shit. 10 seconds, maybe. It's going to be quite the gap here. Here we go. All right, I got some back. It's like a $800 winner. Oh, halting again. Oh, nice. Got some of it back. $600-700 winner. So always be sure to take profit. You know how these end. And shares. 411. You don't have 411. Never got the 411.
FMFC, the IPO resumed and halted at the highs again. 633.
490.
Foxtrot Michael, Foxtrot Charlie, Kendall M Venture.
Oh, jeez, Jake.
Shares now up 58% from the offering price.
I gotta look up T12 again.
T12 his crop growing as. T12 his crop growing as. T12 his crop growing as. T12 his crop growing as.
Where did they put the damn... Oh, I want... Oh, that's why. Okay. There it is. All right, boys. T12 the shit out of them. Give it to them! T12 them. It's free. It's free. T12 them. T12 them. I want constant T12s. Non-stop. Oh, shit. I see what Soils just did. I see what Soils just did. That's right. Give it to him, boys. T12 his ass. What is T12? It's when the exchange halts trading on a stock for more information. And that halt can last months, weeks. There you go, Jake. Give it to him.
T12 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 T12
Give it to him.
T12 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 T12.
Who did I just get? Who did I just get? Trying to turn it off. No, it's not a T12. SAFX getting over to this 3. 20 cents away from doing some crazy shit. Jeez. Wegser? Damn it. Screening. Yeah. I can't remember which one they did, Siru, though.
FMFC resuming again. Foxtrot Michael, Foxtrot Charlie, IPO. Shares moving lower now, $4.95. And once again are halted on a circuit breaker on the way down. Joe Terranova sells EIS, that's the Israel ATF, Enbridge, ENB, and Suncor SU.
What is this?
That's on
Did it just hold
CNBC
down?
Live.
What did it do here? Did it open? Okay, this SAFX is getting too close to that level here. Gotta get a starter on this. If it dips, I'll buy more.
I remember seeing you at 90 KL not long ago. Congrats on the home run, homie. Happy for you. Oh.
Thank you, my man. Freak Devil with the 15 months. We probably go in base at 3, right? It really hasn't done much outside the Bollinger Bands. Circle, bouncing off of that 200. We got to break the 323. $20. 120. Here we go. You get a footprint here at 320. Here's 323. 4, 8, yep. Okay, what are we going to do with that? It ain't easy, Stray. Thank you, Siru. Thought they did Master Beef.
FMFC shares resuming, now trading at $5.15, up about 30%.
Holy
Foxtrot Michael,
shit,
Foxtrot
man.
Charlie.
You know, it's on ticker
IPO,
Mobiline Intel.
SILO,
A possible
and
negative
HOTH,
catalyst is being circulated by
Sinopharma
TechCrunch.
enters
Intel is
into letter of
confirming to
intent to
TechCrunch
form
that
joint venture with
it
Hop
plans to wind down
Therapeutics
auto
to
business.
develop obesity treatment. That's Sandy India Lima
Beta Chuck
Oscar
coming in
and
hot
Hotel
here
Oscar
until it hits
Tango
the brakes
Hotel.
on its automotive business layoffs have started. Beta Chuck giving us the sauce, boys. I don't know how that hurts Mobileye. Here we are. I'll take it. Little base hit there, $200. This is some wild freaking moves here.
That news was out earlier this morning. Another press release. NVIDIA shareholders approve executive pay and directors at annual meeting. All shareholder proposals fail at NVIDIA's annual meeting. That's NVIDIA.
TechCrunch recording Intel says, as part of our work, we have decided to wind down the automotive business within our client computing group.
Yep. Circle bouncing off that 200. Psych level. Not surprised at all. Unfortunately, these freaking Chinese IPOs and the underwriters and all that do them, they've really started to not let these things run, and they're just taking profits on them immediately. How? I can reverse it. Literally said 0 talks are being taken place. I reversed the stock. This is going to make me rage quit.
BP.
No talks copying with BP. Bounce. $800 loser. Whoa, what's up with tops? Out of nowhere. Oh, for sure. It's disgusting. 5-minute building out here on SAFX. ACT's down. Look at this BP bullshit. Look at it. Tops halted? Damn. Do it. So close. $5-minute now is the 30 mark. Nine. There's the wall. Can I break it? Nope. Third time's the charm. Oh, it did break it. Didn't do anything. Careful. Waiting for like a 30-second setup, maybe. $33, $4.35, $6.34. Bollinger Band's kind of in the way. Oh, now it opens up. Yeah, that Bollinger Band's kind of acting spoiler here. ACT needs a hold. You also use RSI? I actually don't. I don't have anything against RSI. I just kind of run out of room. CRCL 205.50 here. Great Philly turd. Great Philly turd. Great Philly turd. Come on. 640, we broke it. Can you push up so I can actually exit? Thank you. All right. It's a tough exit. Oof. All right. Well. Closing that out of the swing account. I don't like that. Get the curling, Corey. Get the curling. Unbelievable, BP. This thing's decked. And honestly, I don't even use the Stokes that often either. If I'm in a trade and I'm like kind of seeing, the only time I use these things is kind of like if they're extended over 80 or under 20. And that's if I'm in a stock and it kind of like fails a breakout area, I might peek at it. MACD, I used to not have this up at all, but now especially in the shitters, this is down. I'm not trading against it. Wow. Tops halted up and then stochastics is what it is. They're all just momentum indicators, and honestly, I couldn't tell you how the equation behind them and why they move differently, but the way I feel that these work is Stokes is a much quicker oscillator. That makes sense. And then MACD is a bigger trend oscillator. I just know how they correlate to moves. I don't really know the ins and outs of them. I know how to use a wrench. Don't ask me how it's made. When you would be in a hall and be like, hell yeah, nowadays I feel like it's more of a, oh no. Yeah, like freaking COVID time, if you were in a hall, you're gapping up like every single time. Now it's because of the kind of stock that we're playing. Like these shitters, these Chinese run shitters specifically by these, like they're not letting it go anymore. It gets to $6 and then they start hitting the sell button. You're right, though. It's not the same euphoric feeling as it used to be. hot gravy. I use this account all the time. I literally have a debit card attached to it, and I freaking use it, pay bills, all sorts of stuff. So the goal is to put more in than I take out. There's not going to be a certain magic number that I have that I'll cap it at. I mean, it's a bank account, so there's not like an investment fund that I'm going to go put it in, because any investment fund I'm going to outperform in this account. I mean, look at this. Look at the year to date. This is stupid. You guys want to get stupid? Let's get stupid for a second. Performance. Okay, this is me versus the S&P 500 this year. Purple line's me. I'm up 133% on the year. S&P 500's up 1%. The 3-year S&P 500 is up 64%. I'm up 3,469%. Like, there's no point in me taking this money out and putting it in another fund. $2023 year sucks so much dick. Jeez. Yeah, but your trading isn't scalable. 100% it is. Are you kidding me? I mean, if I'm trying to move, I don't know, 50 million, yeah, I'll have to change it up. Okay. It's not scalable. Have you seen Ross Cameron? Do you know who that is? Warrior Trading. Homie makes like $250,000 on a good day, doing exactly the same kind of trading I do, but just scaled. A bad day for him is like $10,000. Oh, I mean, I'm cool with that. If that's the cap, I'm cool with that cap. And he doesn't even freaking trade market hours. He just does the damn pre-market. Could have run a hedge fund. I am talking true scalability. What numbers are you talking about? I couldn't run a hedge fund? You're right. Am I trying to? No. What the hell are you talking about? You just said my trading isn't scalable. I just said it is. No, I'm not going to boot him. I mean, is freaking Warren Buffett going to be trading shit stocks with, $50 million buys? Nope. Because if you hit that buy button, guess what? Now you own the company. You're saying you couldn't take those percent returns and scale it into a hedge fund and beat Wall Street. I'm beating what Wall Street could give me. Yes, that's my point. If I put my money, the whole point, if we're rewinding back, was someone asked, am I going to take this money out? I said, no, because if I took this money out, say I took 200,000 of it out and I put it, where else could I put it? I'd have to put it into an ETF, call it VOO, right? I put it into VOO. I can outperform what that 200K would do in VOO. That's exactly what the question was, and that's exactly what we're talking about. We're not talking about opening up a hedge fund. It's, can I scale 200K better than what Wall Street could give me, a la ETFs. Yes, I can. And I do it every year. I only scale losses in that case. This freaking BP's pissing me off. Would you keep everything in the account and grow it percent-wise every year? That's what I do. I mean, I'm not turning 1 million into 5. Sure, I'm going to get some. If I don't scale and I do exactly what I've been doing, if I don't scale my size, yes, you will get to a point where percent return declines. But the whole point, again, without going off on some random tangent, which you're trying to drag it, which I'm not going to let you, is can I outperform what Wall Street will give me? And yeah, I can. And I would venture to say any seasoned day trader in this group has also done better than 1% on the year on their entire account total. All right, we're in agreement there, Has. That's the whole point. That's the whole point I'm making. Can I outperform what Wall Street can give me as far as ETFs and percent return? Yep. Who is Stockcock? We have a Stockcock. How much can you outperform by? I have no idea. It just depends on the market. What was your size when your account was 30K? I started the day off with my first trade being 250 shares, maybe 500. Until I got a cushion on the day. I still do the same thing. So not my starting size is different. So once I get a cushion on the day, I increase my size. I intraday scale. So like right now, I'm up $3,000 on the day. I'll probably stick around the 2,000 share size. If it gets to 5,000, you might see me start taking 4,000 shares on a trade. Unless it's like a volatile stock like Circle, I'll still probably only take 1,000 shares, but you get the drift. What's my best year? 1.3 million. I think I started with 80K that year in the account. I took it to 1.3 million. Kind of. Chime coming back up to high day. Chicks with hockey sticks. How much in taxes? Basically half. Tell me about that year. Do you think if you started with 1.3, you could grow it the same percent? No, I'm not going to have a 3,000. No, again, I said that the percents eventually will come down because you're dealing with the law of large numbers at that point. But I certainly can outperform. The market as a whole. I'm not going to have no It's a lot easier to have a massive percent win when your count starts at 50,000, right? It does get harder because the vehicles change. You have to leave the high beta stocks behind when you move into the big number world. And the high beta is what got you there. You don't have really a high beta. I mean, the only thing we've seen high beta recently has been Circle. I mean, that wild. CoreWeave. That's kind of even died off. And that's, I mean, and a few others like OKLO this year, we've seen some crazy stuff. But that's not normal. We don't usually see that out of the large cap world. So when you get into a much larger account, you're playing different kinds of stocks that don't move 100%, 500% in a day. So that's why the percent gains drops, is because the vehicle changes. Happy to say that I'm improving my cock and scalping, going my first profit. Let's go, Igloo. Let's freaking go, bud. Actually, can you put your scanner settings on screen for a screenshot? There's nothing. This is just high a day. This is just high a day, low a day. There's nothing special about it. I honestly don't even know how to change the settings on this. You see this window that just popped up? Nope. Yeah, it's high day, low day on all stocks under $100. That's it. How much am I up this year? I think it was 130,000. I think this is what we looked at. There you go, Luke. 140,000. Last year, started the account at 30,000 that year, and we were 126,000 profitable. Look at the 2023. 2023 was my worst profitable year on record. It was profitable. But that's embarrassing. That was a rough year for me, man. Work all year for less than McDonald's. $2023 through starting balance. I think it was also 30,000. So I mean, again, percent wise, I did okay compared to S&P, but not where I needed to be. Not where I needed to be. Year before 2023, I think it was 156,000. 2022 was 1.3 million. 2021 was 960,000. Year before that was 150K. And then I just don't even know. I don't remember. E-Trade only allows me to look back 3 years. So I don't know. No, not all starting at 30K. I don't honestly remember when I started in the account last year. Yeah, last year was 30K. This year was 100K. So this year I started with 100K in the account. Last year I started with 30K. Year before that, I don't remember. It might have been 50. It might have been 30. I can't remember. Damn, taxes of 2 years would have been a bitch. They were a bitch. Nothing like working all year long. You finally think you made it, and then the old IRS takes their hand and shoves it up your ass and starts playing around. You don't like it, let me tell you that much. How long am I trading? I've been trading. This will be my 13th full-time year. You were asking what the cock and cuck whip is. I have a video on it, Mike. Watch that one. And then we have Do we have a video on it? There it is. Little clip there. Watch that one. What trading platform do I suggest? None of them. They all suck. Certainly not the one I'm using. Don't use that. It's buggy as hell. Most people here like Thinkorswim. I can't stand it. But again, most people here, I think I'm the only one that don't like it, that doesn't like it. What was my worst loss year? So I wasn't profitable for my first 2 years of trading. You gotta remember, this is a long time ago. 2012, 2013. Learning how to day trade. There was no chat rooms. There was, well, yeah, chat rooms, no free ones. Discord didn't exist. YouTube didn't exist. Or just starting, at least. It did exist. It certainly didn't have any content on there for stock trading. Twitch didn't exist. So the way you had to learn was paying money and trying to learn from the multiple different paid chat rooms out there. And it wasn't a good way to learn. Charge for some shake. Course Discord teach. Yeah, I told myself if I ever made it, because I had to learn via paying for a chat room and trying to figure it out from watching somebody else. And you're just watching one person, right? You pay all this money to watch one trading style. And the person doesn't answer your questions, doesn't do any really teaching. Just was a terrible environment. You're trying to figure it out and you're trying to just whatever. Luckily, I figured it. So the first year I lost like 20,000 or 15, 20. Both years I lost combined a total of like 40,000, I think it was, 40 to 45. So when I say I full-time traded, I had other jobs, obviously, because I would not have survived without those. And I never had like a big blow up. It was always, maybe it was 35 total. I think it was 35. I think my first year I lost 20. My second year I lost 15. And then my third year, I made it all back. I was positive 50,000. Like it clicked. That's the candle over candle method. That's the one that just clicked for me. I was a soccer coach prior to trading at college. So anyway, what I was saying is once I told myself, if I ever made it, I'm going to, and I do the chat room thing in the future, I'm going to make it free because learning this shit is tough. And I don't like the fact that you're taking money from someone that's trying to make money and you can't guarantee their success. So I would much rather give you all the information free, create a community of traders, and then pound you to death with ads. I think it's a good trade-off. How many you made from Twitch? Like, depending on the year, it's like 20 to 30,000. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I think I am. 20 to 30,000-ish, somewhere in there. About the feet picks you charge? Well, that's a different business. I don't put that under the same category as day trading. It's not bad. Yeah. Which in reality, I don't get to keep all that. You know, half of it goes to taxes. But it's a easy win for everybody. You guys basically get free chat room access with all these good traders, and it's not just me. I mean, it's everybody. And all you're doing is attaching your Amazon account to Twitch or whatever, and you're getting a free Prime, and you're just using it here. No one's really paying. I mean, I guess some of you are if you don't attach your Prime account. You're not interested in trading chat. I am totally very interested in it, Biggs. I just had. You have to understand, I've been doing this for 13 years, this kind of trading. To go
Love
and
the streams and your Discord server is great, Tilda.
yeah, Nick and Titan and a bunch of other guys in there. They're awesome. I think you could, again, run for the 3 months. What was I saying? Oh yeah, going futures. It's just a different vehicle. It's a different beast. So I'm very interested in the tax benefits of that. But I just haven't gotten there yet. Sorry, Darksea. Shay is now my second monitor feed for work that I play with. There you go. I prime your stream and then just have turbo. Oh, there's so much. There you go, bud. I've used 1 month, 15 days straight of my life watching you. You're welcome. How does future differ in terms of tax benefits? So you get, don't quote me on this, I think it's 60% of your gains are taxed at 20%, which is the long-term capital gains tax rate. And the other 40 is taxed normally. Is that how it is? I think it's 60-40. So what that means is normally, let's just take an example. If I make $100,000, let's just use federal income tax. If I make $100,000, 39,000 of that is going to the federal government. All right, boom. If I would have made $100,000 trading futures, I would make more money because $60,000 of that would be taxed at 20%. The other 40,000 would be taxed at 39%. Is that right? Think I said it right? I think I did that right. 60,000 would be taxed at 20%, and the remaining 40 would be taxed normally. Yep, that's it. Yep. Somebody give this man a sub. For the record, when you see two necks of that, that's measured in wine bottles. Do you get taxed if you keep your money at your broker? No, this is just cash. I get taxed off of the gains. So you have to report gains, of course. At the end of the year, your broker gives you a form that you use. It tells you your gains that you've achieved through them minus the expenses, minus the fees. So like going back to this one right here. This is 2023. Let's just do this. 2025. What was my fees then? Let me see what my fees were then. I bet it's just something wild. 14,000 in fees for the entire year. Okay. 2025. So I made 144,000 profit. I've actually made 150,000 on the year, but I've had $10,600 in fees. So I will get a form at the end of the year that will show basically every single trade on it. It's hundreds of pages long. You know, some people send it in, whatever, but it basically tells me all the buys that I had. It's like billions of dollars of buys minus all of your sells, and then tells you the difference. The difference is this amount right here. And the IRS sees that. That's what you calculate your taxes off of. Bada bing, bada boom. Fees lower your tax. Well, yeah, I mean, it's an expense. Do I get interest on my cash? I don't think I do. It's a check. I think it's like a checking account. Yeah. Do this quiz on stream, no cheating. Done. This is gonna suck me in here. All right, let's freaking do it. Well, I used to be here. Blockbuster, and get the hell out of here. Is this water fountains? This is like an airport. Public directory, I feel like, is what it is. Could be payphones too, though. Oh no, this is totally payphones. Because you used to have a blocker here. Go payphones. Yeah, what's up? What used to happen at midnight? Remember, turn your computer off before midnight. That's Y2K, baby. Get out of here. What cartoon is this screen from? I feel like it's Rugrats. Could be Doug, though. Could be Ren and Stimpy. It's not Cat and Dog. I feel like it's Rugrats. Oh, yeah, baby. What is this TV set to Channel 3? Why is it? That would probably be to play video games. Gosh, I'm freaking... How many of this are there? Good God! This is just stupid. It's just trying to make me watch ads so they make money. What is this? That's an ashtray. What movie is this from? Is this from Titanic? God, I'm so good. That's Pizza Hut all day. It's Beanie Babies. It's Tom. That's N64. Whose bedroom is this? I don't know this one. Oh, I got it right. What is this person about to draw? An S? What show is this Notebook from? I want to say it's Blue's Clues. I don't know. What is this person doing? Rewinding the tape. This is a car window. Okay, this is a floppy disks. I mean, when do you want me to stop, Soils? What went inside of this? VHS? What is this? It's Caller ID. It's film. This is an airplane cell phone. Program is this? It's hard to tell. I think it's Napster. It's either LimeWire or Napster. I can't really see it. I think it's LimeWire because the green icon and Napster was blue. So freaking good. This is a Kush. It's Blockbuster. Oregon Trail. All right. 25 of 25. 2020, 25 of 25. Let's go. I had one lucky guess. I don't know what that Arnold thing was. Where was it? I didn't know this one. This one was a guess. And this one, I still have no idea what. I probably would recognize the characters, but I don't know them offhand. Hey Arnold. Hey Arnold cartoon. Hey Arnold. Oh, okay. Yeah, with that crazy sister. What was her name? Helga or something like that. Yeah, I watched very little of that. Girl, not sister. Oh, whatever. Was it Shorty? I.e. Is that new all-time highs on NVIDIA? Wow. Micro calls are now only down 50. Oh, jeez. All right, I'm calling it here, boys. $3,000 a day. It's getting kind of slow. So hopefully I can go get some sleep tonight, because that sucked. Jeez. They had NVIDIA at 103 and sold at 109. That's the whole. I also had it at 110, rode it to 140 or whatever it was, 150, and then rode it all the way back down and sold it at 111 or 112. Anyway, try not to wait till 9:30. Yeah, if I didn't freaking take the tweaker from the gas station tweaker, well, we would have been on time. I still feel like it's in my system somewhat. I think it'll run around or something. Anyway, as always, we'll be back tomorrow. Here to help. If you guys have any questions or comments, hit me up. In Discord's the best way to get a hold of me. We will be back at it tomorrow. And then Friday, I'll be in the bunker. We're going to try that again. The new setup. God help me.